Welcome to Oil and Whiskey, an Ironclad original. I am Josh Henning.
I'm Phil Gerber.
I'm Jeremy Gerber.
Welcome to Oil and Whiskey, an Ironclad original. Today's guest is good friend, great customer, Barry Blomquist.
Blomquist.
That's what I said.
Spelled
yeah,
Blomquist.
No, you didn't hear me. I said Blomquist.
It's spelled wrong.
Retribution here.
It's spelled wrong.
I tell you what, about something about that last name. You know, it's just never. It's.
Yes, I know. Don't rub it in.
We may do another round of taking shots, but we'll just have to see where we're at. Barry Blomquist is an award-winning collector and longtime Roadster Shop customer. Growing up, Barry spent his childhood surrounded by cars at the used dealership his father ran. In his teenage years, he began doing custom builds on his own. After a hiatus spent raising a family and running his steel fabrication business, Barry got back into building cars. Barry and the Roadster Shop crew have teamed up on several builds, such as how many is it?
We're on number 7.
Number 7. I'm not going to read all 6 of them. We'll get it.
We'll go through them all.
Yeah, absolutely. Barry, welcome to Oil and Whiskey.
Thank you. Nice
Good
to be
have
here.
you.
Nice to be here.
Cheers, everybody.
Yeah, cheers. It's a pleasure to have you in person.
Yeah.
Sometimes we just can't do these without physically having the person here. You're one of those guys. We had to have you here, so
I don't know.
thanks for making the trek.
I don't know if I do well on a Zoom call.
You're about as tech savvy as I am. You're actually more tech savvy because you've always got iPads and
I'm not very tech
laptops
savvy. In fact, I'm really fed up with tech. My wife jokes all the time that I've got a great idea for a tech guy. Come up with a app called Zoomed Out, where you can just be out of this stuff. Instead of zoomed in, I want to be zoomed out.
I think
No, LinkedIn. LinkedIn. I want to be linked out rather than LinkedIn.
I think Mike Ring actually has that figured out. It's called a Motorola flip phone. You can make phone calls.
Yeah,
on it. You
okay.
No text messages.
No text.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't
You
know.
put Snake.
That is it.
I get 30 emails a day and 40 emails, 50 emails, and most of them are worth reading. So anyway.
Oh, y'all are good. You can.
Oh yeah, you're over there. You're over there playing.
I was getting stuff prepped.
So when did we first meet?
I looked that up. I gave you a deposit for the first car in June of 05. That was when you were in Elgin.
Yeah.
Your mom was in the office. Steve was still alive.
Oh, Steve.
Dog. Steve was a
Steve
puppy.
the dog,
Steve
yeah,
was a
yeah.
puppy then. He was a puppy.
We fired my mom since then.
Yes.
Yeah, she was.
She didn't last long.
So 05, I think 06, we terminated her. So
The whole thing, it was a family affair when I met you, and it's been a absolutely wonderful relationship ever since. You know, I can't say enough positive about it. There was a little rocky time in there where I had to get used to the bills, but
yeah, it stings for a little while. After a while,
God,
after a while, it's like getting into cold water. You know,
There were nights
you stay
I-
in there long enough, you get used to it. You know,
there were nights I couldn't sleep when we were building C1 RS.
It didn't sting too bad. You kept coming back.
Well, I got over it. It's like a sickness, and you kind of take some medication, and you kind of get over it. But the experience was quite good most of the time.
It's like a flaming hot Cheeto.
oh yeah,
it's hot.
But you're like, God,
I
damn,
got
you
one more.
Then your
Maybe
tongue's
one more.
smoking. So 2005, wasn't it? If I remember correctly, you met Phil at, was it Back to the 50s? Is that where?
No, actually, my wife is a dentist, for those that care. She'd come to Chicago all the time and go to meetings at the ADA building downtown Chicago. We'd stay at the Ritz-Carlton. She'd always invite me along. So, I mean, you got a nice weekend and at the Ritz-Carlton, and I'd let her go to her meetings. I'd wander around and shop. And so one time she said, well, I got to go back to Chicago again. Do you want to go along? And I said, well, I'll go along, but I'm going to rent a car and I'm going to drive out to, because I had found you on a website, Phil. Remember the website I heard you talking about?
Well, that was before
it was pretty
Grindr came
minuscule,
out,
I
so.
think. This was in 05. This was a Phil-designed website.
Yep. I think it was
we got to talk about this. This website, this is an amazing website.
This website gets brought up a lot.
It was cutting edge.
Yeah, it had the
At the time, maybe
the
it
buttons
was.
with the flames and the real fire on there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And the showroom door.
Yeah,
Remember?
showroom doors open.
Showroom door was a crowd pleaser.
Oh, it was a fake showroom door.
Yeah, and you'd click on it and the doors would open.
Oh, I don't remember.
And then there
that
were cars in
about
there.
it. I'm getting old. I forgot. It's hard enough for me to just remember the trip. But I said to Eva, my wife, that I'm going to go out to spend the day in Elgin and see what the Roadster Shop all about. I had dreamt about wanting to build everybody's dream, at least my era, is having a 32 Roadster. So you guys were the dealers for the Dearborn Deuce body. I was impressed with all steel. I'm never particularly liked fiberglass cars, things like that. So I thought, I'll just go out and see what this is all about. And I did. And obviously from there we ended up, originally I wanted to just buy the body and buy a chassis. And then I got to the point, the realization that this would take me the rest of my life to finish, that maybe I ought to have you do the whole thing. I was really, really impressed with the workmanship that was going on. And that was early on. I mean, you had the red and silver 32 Dearborn that you built for yourself. I was just overwhelmed by, my background is welding and manufacturing and stuff, and the quality at that time. And of course, it's gone up by 100-fold since then. So I was just really overly impressed with everything and decided to have you build the car.
And you were able to look past how could I say this, like politely, the shithole that we were working in, I guess.
Well,
it wasn't.
Let me tell you, I grew up in the car
nicest
business in a
shop.
little 2-bay shop that my dad owned. I know what shitholes are all about. And it was nothing compared to what you have now, obviously, but it wasn't all that bad. You had a paint booth, at least didn't have doors on it, but no, maybe it did. Room for 5 cars, and they're welding in the other room. And the finished product was
what stood out.
Yeah, people have to understand, I came from that background. I was painting cars when I was 15 years old for my dad. I did body work at a couple of high-end body shops in La Crosse, Wisconsin, where I'm from. Built a couple cars. So I kind of understood what went into it, but just didn't have the time. At the time, my kids were still teenagers. I just figured I better have you do this if I want this. And it was my 60th birthday present to myself. So now people can do math and figure out how old I am. I've now determined, after listening to most all your podcasts, I'm the second oldest person you've ever interviewed. Gail Banks being the oldest. One sharp guy, by the way.
Yes.
I was really impressed. I hope I'm half that sharp in 3 more years. So very knowledgeable and very articulate. Anyway, so.
Well, take us back then to a little bit of the beginning of how it got started. And because I'm interested, like you said, you looked at the shop, you weren't overly impressed with the surroundings, but at the same time, like you said, you'd seen worse, but what stood out was the craftsmanship of it. However, you've got a lot of young guys there, a fairly new business. There has to be some faith and some trust based on, okay, I see this, but I'm looking around and I see these young guys like, are they really doing this? So take us back to the beginning of how you got to the point to where you realized that, yeah, they could do it.
You have to understand how long I've known these two. I knew them when Phil talked more than Jeremy. If you get what I mean. Phil's known as the quiet one. Jeremy was more quiet at the time.
I've come a long way.
You've come a long way.
It's amazing what therapies.
You came out of your shell over the years.
Speech
trust me.
classes, and all that, injections.
He's just blossomed like a flower.
We say that all the time, honestly.
The more whiskey he drinks, the more he blossoms.
You got to water that flower.
So what was the question again?
So back, where did you take us back to young Barry? I want to know.
I can get into the personal story, or I can stay with the story of.
I think it'll make more sense with what you saw in them and the relationship that you formed. If everybody kind of knows about the backstory or the background of.
Well,
you had to have some type of body work in your mind to know what you were looking at as far as craftsmanship.
Something to compare it or gauge it against.
Well, I'm a serious gearhead. I've been since I was 8 years old. I think I told Josh this earlier. At 8 years, my father was a used car dealer, struggling along, not a big deal at all. He went totally blind when I was 8 years old.
Just like that overnight?
Well, he was an adolescent diabetic, and back then, now they have laser treatments for eye vessel hemorrhaging. It was not available back then. This was in 1955 or 6, something like that. And yeah, he was basically, I mean, he could tell if there was a real bright light flashing. That was it. I mean, this is, can't drive, can't work, lead around, you know.
Wow.
The only thing he liked to do was drink beer and dance. He'd go out and dance with women in the bars. And he still had rhythm, I guess. But
It's not a bad thing if you can go out partying and you can't see them. And they're all 10s.
so that's where my environment started. And I was not a jock in high school. I was probably could have been a very good student, because I think now looking back, I average intelligence or more. But I didn't work really hard at school. I had to go. I mean, I tell all my jock friends that I still know from high school that I didn't have time to run track or play football. I got on the bus the moment it left, and I went home, and I started helping Dad because somebody needed to. I have an older brother and a younger brother who are both deceased, but neither one of them had a strong interest, and they didn't have the ambition I had. And so at 8 years old, I started doing whatever I could do, tearing cars apart, whatever, cleaning. By the time I was 13, 14 years old, I was doing mechanic work, painting cars, painting trucks. My dad, a lot of his business was selling pickup trucks to farmers, so they didn't have to be Roadster Shop quality. You know, actually, you know, a lot of times we'd paint a green truck and a blue truck and a gray truck, and then whatever's left, you'd mix them all together.
It's a brown truck.
And now it's whatever that came out, olive drab, that's what it ended up being. Anything to save a buck. But so I did a lot of that as a young kid, and it just kind of stuck. I always had a strong interest in cars. I bought my first car when I was 14 years old, a 57 Chevy. And I spent a lot of time as a youth rebuilding wrecked cars. That was back when you didn't have to put it on the title that it was wrecked. And so, you know.
Was that a wrecked 57 Chevy that you bought?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, sure. It was,
How bad wrecked?
Smashed in the front. It wasn't that bad a deal. I mean, I got to know all the frame shops where if the frame was bent, you straighten it, you put fenders on it. I did a lot of mechanic work for friends of mine that were older. I always had older friends that could drive, and they had cars, and I did their work for them.
What'd you have to pay for that car?
Oh, I can't even remember. A few $100s. It was a black 57 Chevy Tudor hardtop. It was automatic, a power glide in it. That was another thing. I became an expert at changing cars from automatics to manuals. I can't remember how many clutch pedal assemblies I put in and steering columns that I put in, and to convert power glides to 3 speeds. You know, that was before 4 speeds, guys.
Is the pivot ball, is that always on the frame when you're doing that for mechanical linkage?
For the clutch.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. The fork was a pivot. Yeah.
So it's there regardless if the car was built.
No.
as an automatic?
That's screwed into the bell housing.
Okay.
The ball screwed into the house, and then there's a bracket off the frame,
Gotcha.
and the bell crank between it went between it. Yeah. So I remember all that stuff. I mean, I've had transmissions fall on my chest, and it's a strange life. But somehow, when I was growing up, I decided I really didn't want to be in the car business. My dad got too many calls on Christmas Eve that the car wouldn't start, and had to go over with jumper cables, and I became, because of the mechanical skills, the body, and paint, I became a pretty good welder at a young age. We used to braze cars together.
Those are the ones we get now that we strip the paint off, and we're like, the hell happened to this thing?
When I was about 17 or 18 years old, I'll never forget one guy that I still is alive today. He's very elderly, but he said, the only thing I can remember about you is when you were about 18 years old and you bought 2 58 Thunderbirds. One bumped in the back, one bumped in the front. He said, I remember seeing you cut those right through the middle and weld 2 cars together and make one. So, back then I'd just about try anything. But by the time I was 19, 20 years old, I had just decided I didn't think that I wanted to spend my life doing that.
You'd been doing it for 10 or 11 years at that
I
point.
know I had enough experience. I'd been already 8 years in.
This is what everybody should listen to, because this is the turning point that we all miss.
Yeah.
Well-
we weren't smart enough to say, let's not play with cars anymore.
There's a generational gap now between, don't get me going on this, but between today's young people and my generation.
Yep.
Anyhow, I started thinking about what I wanted to do, and I got married too young. I had children. I can tell you when to have children. I had a family when I was in my early 20s, 2 boys, and I had twins when I was 50. So,
But what's the sweet spot then? Is there,
well,
is there
it's
middle
not
ground
in the
there, or
early
is it-
20s, and it's not 50. Fortunately, I'm becoming a grandparent for the first time with my second round of children
Congrats.
in May, and they got married when they were 26. My 2 older children both got married in their late 20s, so I have 3 grandchildren with them. But it's not 21 to get married, and it's not 49, almost 50 to have children. So
I was 28.
I was 22.
you're too young. You're
My
you're
wife
older
was-
than they
my
are.
wife
Jeff.
was 20.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it just
Yeah, that was early.
well, what it does, it puts you in a negative position, maybe is a good way to say it, before you even get started. I mean, you've got the burden of supporting a child, trying to find a place to live, support that, and you're still not formed. I mean, you're still not doing what you need to do. And by the time I was 21, I had decided that I loved making things out of steel, and became a pretty good welder. I went to school, became a state certified structural welder. Not that I ever did that for a living. I just wanted to be able to do it. And at 24, I started a one-man welding shop in a 40 by 60 building. And everybody thought I was crazy because I built a brand new building, a little steel building, had a little office in it, had a 1-ton truck with a welder in the back. I had saved enough money rebuilding wrecked cars to put this package together.
What was the vision with that? Did you have was there a
Well,
big picture?
I
or were you
never
just-
thought of myself as having a welding shop. In fact, I named the business. I did not put my name in it. It was called Mid-City Steel Fabricating. And the idea always was that you'd run across 1 or 2 or 3 products that you could manufacture, and kind of like you with chassis. I mean, you started out as a car builder. Now you're really dominantly, you're
Chassis
doing
builder.
both, but I can tell you where the profit is without even seeing
Yeah,
your
it's
books.
Definitely not in the cars. That's for sure.
So that was always the vision, but
We need to talk about the invoices a little bit, maybe on the car side of things.
if we could get those just a little bit
We
higher.
could get it profitable.
when I see my invoices, I can't believe there's not profit in them, but I'll take your word for it. So I started this business working alone. Was fortunate enough after a few months to hire one young man at 18. He was 18 years old. He ended up staying with me the day I sold the place. I had a lot of good people, but over the years I went from 2,400 square feet of space to 65 or 70,000 square feet of manufacturing space, from a lot that was 100 feet wide and 160 feet deep to 6 acres of land in downtown La Crosse, where I live. And went from one guy to 80 plus employees. And it was just, it was a good ride. I mean, it was challenging every day. I can honestly sit here and say there was not one year I lost a dime. There were some skinny years, but I never saw any red ink. And it was, I always say the harder I worked, the luckier I got. And there was a lot of hard
Good way
work.
of looking at it.
A lot of risks, a lot of taking risks. And if I had one good thing, is I always had some vision. I was always a step or so ahead of where I was. I think you got to the point where, it's like you with technology. You guys have done a fabulous job of just embracing anything that comes along that helps your manufacturing process. And I just didn't have the luxury of all the digital world you do, but any new welding process, any new equipment, material handling. When I finished the business, when I sold it, we had 6 bays that were 50 feet wide, 150 feet long, and all of them had 10-ton cranes overhead cranes. You can't function without good material handling processes. And so I just kept, it seemed like the growth was just one process or project after another to keep it moving along, and you'd keep adding employees and just customer driven. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to brag too much. I've been very fortunate guy.
I was there. Phil, you were there with me, right?
I was not there. No,
you weren't there. We went up there to. I think we were delivering a car.
I delivered
for you,
my car on my birthday. That's the only time you were there.
And you took us around, and I
Did I ever show you the shop? No.
Yeah, yeah. We went to the shop.
Yeah.
And it was mind blowing. I mean, you were building like ships, basically.
Yeah. In fact, Josh, you got
that's
any picture there? This is worth looking at for the average person.
This is very impressive. I mean, coming from fabrication and seeing that.
It's the pictures down in the lower right. That picture.
That
is the front of a boat in our shop being built. That's a man at the bottom with a grinder in his hand. When I meet people and I said I had a welding shop, and then I show them that picture.
Yeah. It looks like a ship to me. That's
in fact
larger than a boat.
You don't think of it as a welding shop. My youngest son, who lives in Dallas now, he's a really sharp, bright kid, but we had a beautiful house. In fact, we still own it. And it was big. So we'd invite all the kids over. We wanted to know where our children were. We didn't care if the other parents knew. And the kids would come over, and my wife also had a very good income and very good career. So we lived extremely comfortable and for where I live. And the kids would say, "What does your dad do?"
It's a welder.
And Bjorn, my youngest son, would say, "He's a welder." Then they look at him. "No, what did he do?" So he was a welder.
He's just been welding for a long time.
Yeah. So
builds a lot of metal together.
What were those for?
Well, I should have loaded a couple more pictures. That boat is actually in San Diego Harbor. That boat, you're seeing the first story of it. There's two more stories on top of it. That is the dining area. The next level up was a cocktail bar, and on the top they're wedding boats. Out in California, it's so hard to rent a place to get married, so they take these boats and you get married on the top floor in kind of open air, and then you walk down and you drink and your cocktail, and then you walk down and have your dinner, and the boat's out cruising around.
How do you get a boat to San Diego from La Crosse, Wisconsin?
That boat, in fact, I got more pictures. It'd be very interesting for most people to
Floated around.
That boat
seems like a long way.
Now, I was a subcontractor on these boats. It was a company called Skipperliner that has now closed their doors. But all we did was the fabrication side of it. We had to transport that boat from our place to their place, which was on the water. There was a trailer that carried that boat from there in the middle of the night. It had 128 tires under it. The trailer was made in Germany, $700,000 trailer at the time. Well, this was 15, 18, 20 years ago. Every axle could steer hydraulically. You could turn that right around the street corner. It was amazing, but that's how we moved it. Then from there, they put it in the water when it was all done, and they drove it down the Mississippi to New Orleans, put it on a barge, took it through the Panama Canal and up to California.
Well, that sounds like a testament to how terrible it is to manufacture anything in California.
Well,
is to
You go through those kind of lines to avoid California.
Well, we built two boats that are in Lake Tahoe. For those of you who don't know it, Lake Tahoe is 5,000 feet above sea level. You don't float it there.
Yeah, no, you can't.
You truck it there.
Big helicopter.
A tough place to
One
truck to
of
as well.
them was built and divided right down the center. The keel normally would be 1.5 inch thick plate, and we sandwiched 2 3/4 plates together and bolted them. And so when it was all done, and we built it in one piece inside the shop, then we split it in half and shipped one half out on a trailer and another half out on a trailer.
Was that your bread and butter? Was it doing ship hulls and stuff
No,
like that?
I started out building railings for houses for ladies that would fall off their front step. That's what it's ornamental iron business.
Okay.
And it evolved from there to just actually at the time this was built, probably half of our work was in boats like that, and half of it was structural steel work for contractors. Contractors were our bread and butter for years. We did in Wisconsin they don't build skyscrapers, but we'd do 3-4 story high buildings, schools, stairways, beams, columns, all that stuff. And then gradually this became less and less because the economy really affected this a lot. And when I sold the business, that was probably 15% of the business, and then 2 years later, it was gone. So,
what was the key to success in that business, getting to the level that it was? Just quality work, because I mean, this is before the internet was really prominent. So
yeah, we had a. I don't know that we ever had a website. Maybe
Should have called Phil. He could have put you one together.
put one together quick, Bill.
these big ship doors open.
I'm big on sayings and things, and when you'd walk in the front door, and we had a very, very nice place. I mean, it was a precast building, fairly new. I'd always get a lot of flack from some of my customers. You must be expensive because you have such a nice place. Kind of like you got all this beautiful equipment. It must be really expensive, which you are. But
Thank you.
Anyway, when you walk in the front door, there was a sign that said "Das Best or Nix." And if you don't know what that means in German, the best or nothing. And that was kind of our motto. And I remember you on a podcast a few weeks ago saying this, that your goal from the beginning was always, why don't you repeat it? It was to
That was just to simply build the best.
build the best you could,
yeah,
do the best job you could. And that was our motto. We were never the cheapest. We were the best. And we gave good. One of my other favorite saying was price, service, and quality. Pick two. You can only have two.
Yep.
You can't be the cheapest guy on the block and still give the best service and the best quality. You can't. It's impossible. So the business was really built out of great service and high quality. And especially in the structural steel business, if you do something fast and quick and it doesn't fit when you get to the field, you get charged back, but the contractors also get delayed, and you don't make any friendships at all with people. So it has to be right. It's kind of like a car leaving here, functioning and working properly, rather than getting it back 3-4 times before it's right.
Sure.
And so anyway, I got to stop talking.
No,
Well, that's what we're here for.
Unfortunately,
you know?
this is what this is.
So
I've decided it's a lot of bullshit.
it's probably 75 to 80% bullshit, I'd say.
Yeah,
And there's some substance.
You could
mixed in
hold
there.
this in a bar.
That's kind of what we tried to recreate here. You know, that's so we have some of our
getting together and
we
bullshitting
have
in
some
the
of our
bar.
best conversations. So how did you end up selling the business? Was that your goal to grow it?
No,
sell
it really
or did-
wasn't.
Did something just the stars and the line?
I ran it for 39 years, and because I have 5 children, I really kind of decided that this was best not to bring one child into the business. One of my children's a daughter. She has no interest. I've got 2 of them are engineers. One's a chemical engineer. One's a mechanical engineer. I mean, one's an accountant. I mean, I probably
It
could.
sounds like you kind of have the team.
I have them
yeah.
all. I mean, I have a dentist in there too, so we have good teeth. You know, a lawyer. At this point, we have it all.
It almost sounds like the Duttons. You know? It's like Yellowstone. Yeah.
Well, I won the lottery when it comes to kids, and I'll be the first to say it. I dropped out of college. I went on and off for a couple, 3 years while I was in that marriage scene and trying to get a business going, but it just wasn't for me. My friends that know me just always think, well, just think you'd done pretty well if you would have gone to college.
Maybe not.
So where was I? I lose track of thought here. I don't want to.
The sale of the business.
Oh, so thank you, Josh. I'm glad you're on top of
No,
it.
your problem.
To keep them around.
So I decided that, this is probably not a second generational thing because it just becomes kind of complicated. Plus, 2 of the children, I mean, maybe I'm saying more too much, but 2 of the children from a previous marriage, she got interaction between stepchildren and things like that. I just thought it was best if I thought about selling it. So when I was...
You couldn't divvy up the company stock to all of these kids, so it's best to sell it and then spend all the
That's
money
right.
before you have to worry about the inheritance.
At the Roadster Shop.
Yeah, exactly.
And I didn't even, I have nothing against any of my kids, but I didn't see the passion in the older ones for it, and the younger ones were too young. I mean,
Right.
when I sold the business, I had teenagers. They were not ready to take over businesses. The other two were established and gone and married. But I just decided it was best.
They should have been working at the shop at
Well,
8 years old, like you
some
were,
of them
helping
did.
the dad.
Some of them were sweeping floors, but they went on to college. They went on to bigger and better things.
You can't force passion on somebody.
No, I mean, I'm a builder. I don't care what it is. It's just I love doing things. I mean, I bought a garage condo out in Arizona last week before I came in here. I'm building a bathroom. I'm plumbing and sweating pipes. And guy that's developed thing came over and he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm plumbing." I said, "Don't other people do this?" He says, "Oh no, everybody else just writes checks out here." I like doing it. So anyway, I told my accounting firm at that time that I like to sell the place and eventually, and they said, "Well, you've got to get somebody to manage it because nobody's going to buy a closely held business because you're gone, the business is gone." So I hired a guy that I thought was fairly competent, and to this day I still think he was, to manage the place, and I kind of just stepped aside. I gave him my office for 3 years and came in and an hour or two a day, and I was doing some real estate development things. I built some office buildings and a condo project, and so I just got in my pickup and did other things and came back. And that was in the early 2000s when I would say between 2002 and 2006 or 7, you couldn't do anything wrong in business. It was just on fire. There was plenty of work, and because there was plenty of work, there was plenty of profit. And anyway, so this guy managed the place. He did a fairly good job. He was an engineer of some sort. Anyhow, he did a good job. And so then I was at my accounting firm one day, and she said, "Well, I've got somebody locally that would like to buy a manufacturing business." And she told me who it was, and I didn't think that was ever going to happen. I went home and told my wife who it was, and she laughed. She said, "That's never going to happen." 3 months later, we closed. It was done.
It happened.
And the man that was the manager, he was a 1/3 partner. It was 2 other guys and him, and they bought it, lock, stock, and barrel. Real estate, blue sky, inventory, done. Walked out the door.
Damn.
At 62.
Yeah.
And of course, they always said, "Well, just I hope you're around. We want you on as a consultant."
Yeah, give me a call.
Being a consultant is a polite way of saying you're unemployed.
Yeah.
Anyhow, they never called.
Not once, huh?
No,
Not even
called.
like, where's the key to this? Or how do you
Never
open
called.
this door?
No, they really didn't, and I'm fine with that. The business, of course. Then I closed in August 24th of 2007. What
Ooh,
happened?
boy.
What happened in January of
good timing.
2008?
Good timing right there.
Down everything went, and they went through some years. They did the sales went way up, but they were giving. I perceive they were giving a lot of work away. I still think to this day that more of the profitable years were when I ran it because I say we, but I owned it, but I had a great team of people. We'd take on everything and anything. The more difficult the job, the more we liked it. And there's more profit in that particular kind of business in difficult work.
That's completely the opposite in this business because we do the same. We like to take on the more complicated, the more exciting, the more interesting it is. But oftentimes, not only is it not profitable.
Well, the business I was in,
It goes the other way. Yeah.
the business I was in, 80% of it was bid. You bid work. To the contractors, you bid work. The only way you can make money on bid work is to
Cut corners.
bid it. No, you don't necessarily cut corners.
There you go, Josh.
You find efficiencies.
That is a life lesson from Josh right there.
And you don't cut corners. It's what you're doing with chassis. It's finding efficiencies. It's repetition. It's getting the people trained to do, you try to divide it up into segments, and that's how you make money on bid work. On the other hand, I encouraged a lot of my customers to do stuff time and material. And that way I never lost and they never lost. There are times that there are jobs where you don't come out that well, but anyway, so.
That's why, I mean, time and material generally on anything is a better way of doing it. Because like I said, I mean, I was joking on the cutting corners thing, but after a while, if people are continuing to get burned on bid work and stuff like that, that's the only way at the end of the day to make any money is.
Yeah. So I don't know. It was just a really, I've had a good life. I've had a,
Well, it explains a lot as far as, like you said, the quality and knowing what you were seeing, because you built your entire business career and everything on, like you said, building the best, doing the best, and taking on that challenge and overcoming obstacles. So I think that kind of brings us back into seeing Phil's, a tremendous, amazing website and being like, these guys obviously know
And then seeing the show.
know a thing or two. So
Is there any way to go back and find that on the internet now?
I don't know.
is it still out there, Phil?
Probably not. It's been
Does the
rolled over.
doors opening?
I think I got it on a CD somewhere. I gotta find it.
Floppy disk.
If that
I've got a lot of pictures of my first cars on floppy
if that
disks.
involves digging up any old Cirrus history, let's just not touch it. Let's let that go. It's just a memory.
You see the shop, you're seeing you're seeing the craftsmanship, and you've got something. There's a sparkle in their eye. There's something that you see the quality, and you're like, I'm willing to take a chance on these guys, or I think they've got it, or I've got something, a project I want to do.
Or I just think they're young, dumb, and I could get this done cheap, and they do pretty good work. There's different ways of looking at that. You could.
I didn't go there.
Well,
but
that's right.
Like I said, I was really impressed with the quality of work. It was a little scary. I mean, Jerry was barely out of puberty.
Yeah, I think I was just starting to get a little hair on my chin. At that point.
Phil may have had a little bit of beard. I don't know.
I think I was born with the beard.
I mean, I'd have bbeen 22 years old.
You were 22 or 23 when I met you. Yeah, I'm joking about the puberty.
Yeah,
thing, but.
no, you're not far off. That was a late blossom.
So I'm sitting there looking at what they're doing, talking to Phil mostly about pricing, I think, and Neil, bless his heart, he was just a wonderful man. I can't say enough nice things about him. He's there with his two sons, and he looks me square in the face, and he says, I said, I'm a little nervous about trusting these two young men to build me $100,000 and some car. He says, don't worry about it, Barry. If it's not right, we'll make it right. You have my word. And really, we didn't have many problems with that car at all. None. I mean, it was a neat car.
It was a cool car.
It was a cool car. Drove beautifully. There's days I wish my dad always had a saying, never fall in love with anything that can't love you back. Another one of my wonderful sayings. Yeah. And I kind of feel that way. As you know, I get these cars done, and then I get an itch someplace that says maybe it's time to move on. And so I had that car and the pickup truck, and then the C1 RS came along. So at one point I had 3 of these things at one time. And by the time I got done with C1 RS, I was broke, so I had to
had to take a little bit of a break. Yeah. I mean, the stock market wasn't doing real well at that time. I think probably investments weren't doing that great.
So
that was finished 2009,
yeah,
right?
2009. Yeah, probably not the best time to.
No, the C1 RS was 2009 Street Machine of the Year.
Yeah.
The other cars, the pickup was done the year after. That was Truck of the Year for Goodguys in 10.
Yeah.
The little Roadster, that got a few pros picks. That was back when Boyd Coddington was still alive. Nothing great shakes there, but that was a really great driving car. It just, it was back when you were using Heights suspensions, but it was independent front, independent rear, ZZ 4-crate engine, 5-speed transmission. I don't build anything with automatic transmissions, as you know. I'm allergic to them.
How did I'm going to ask you a question. First, I'm going to give my answer. So C1 RS, right? I'd be interested to hear how that kind of came about. I'm going to tell you first. I've been on this same exact side of things before. When new customer, new shop, they trust you to build you build the first car, and that's kind of the first big customer that trusts you to do something. You build something great. Then they want to follow it up. They do a next car, right? You do that. You make them happy. And then somewhere along the way, it's either traveling back from a show or it's at a show. You've done 2 cars, the shop and the customer, you're sitting there talking. Both people want to do that next great thing. You know what we ought to do. We ought to do this and this, this and this, and then you start feeding off of each other, and then that's generally when something crazy comes. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. How did C1 RS come about?
Well, kind of the same way. I think Neil had bought that 62 Corvette.
Yeah, where did we find that?
I know. He found it and brought it. It was in your shop.
It's weird.
Yeah, we had
got
it on
to
the
do,
chassis table to design it.
Yeah, we got it to do chassis.
I don't know what you were going to do with it, but somehow I got sucked into that.
It
And
happens.
I always, it started out with a vision, Josh. The vision was to build, I've always loved Corvettes. I've had a lot of them through the years. To just build an early Corvette that was really nice and drivable, just a fun car to have. And yeah, you can show some pictures of it there. And somehow that, as beautiful as the car was, and I
Put it on this screen.
I think it put the Roadster Shop on the map.
I think that
It was the first
I think
significant.
that was the one.
I remember when, who was the writer for Goodguys? Drummond? No.
Yeah.
At the time, yeah.
He wrote an article in their magazine, and it said, this car represents a sea change in the custom car building business. That word sea change is that's big and encompassing. And it did. I remember being in Columbus, that car showing up, and everybody went nuts over it. It just did. And it goes on to win Street Machine of the Year. That car was in at least a dozen magazines or more, even French magazines and Ukrainian magazines and any Australian magazines. It was everywhere. And
Yeah, that one will go down in history for sure.
it will. The reality of it is probably not my favorite car, personally.
Yeah.
It's not drivable.
It was
That
a little.
was definitely drivable.
It was Phil drove the hell
Phil
out
can
of it.
show it.
For those of you who
show
don't
that.
know it, when I went to sell that car, the first thing I had to do is buy a set of tires. And I had to put new front brake rotors on it. They were burnt so bad, you couldn't try to sell it looking like that.
It's a cheap price for a Street Machine of the Year trophy. You can't just go out and buy
That's
those.
the third set of tires.
And
They don't just give those away, right?
drove
Not
the
just
hell out of
anybody
that
can
car.
have those.
There he is again. There's one picture someplace in there of me driving.
In my
it.
defense, I was on the starting line for the Street Machine of the Year autocross, and you came over and said, "You better win this fucking thing."
Did I say it like that? Maybe.
You gotta-
F bomb may or may not.
You
have
got to
been in
choose
there,
your
but-
words carefully because
No, I've heard the F-bomb more than you guys ever. I grew up in a car lot. Remember that?
So yeah, I went out there and I made it happen.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, the car looked-
Not only did it win,
car
it had the
looked great.
fastest time.
Yep.
So it made a real mark for the Roadster Shop, especially, and me too. It was not a moneymaker. None of this is money-making stuff. It's all.
But it had to be hell of a ride. As
was.
many cars as
It
you
was.
had built
Yeah.
and been a part of and stuff like that, that one had
Oh,
to
yeah.
be the first time that you
Yeah.
were
Yeah.
you were doing stuff with that car that you had never done with
No,
cars
the
before.
Roadster Shop was doing things. But
and I think
I remember I wanted a nice drivable 60. So the car that followed it up was the 64 Corvette,
yeah. Well, look, there's a lot of things we learned on that car,
which
to
was
change,
made to drive
change
and
pace
very
a little bit.
tame.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how that car ended
Well, you
up.
can
really.
send the trophies back if you don't want them.
No. I like them all. I've got a lot of awards through this group of people.
That
and-
Snap-on toolbox is worth some money.
yes, I know. I got one when they were 8 foot long, not 5 foot long.
Get the triple bank.
Yeah. Of course, they didn't
Well,
get
that-
one for Street Machine of the Year then. There was no toolbox with that one. I went back to Goodguys and asked them if I could get one or even buy one, and they wouldn't get it for me.
Interestingly enough, that when we were discussing what to do with that car, we were sitting right here before we
Yeah.
cut this all up and made this
Oh, really?
podcast studio.
Was the pool table here? No.
The pool table's there. We had a that little round
Yeah.
conference table, and I was sitting over there, and you were sitting over here,
Yeah.
and we were going through.
No,
a bunch of
we were
pictures,
discussing.
and-
You were telling me what you were
Yeah.
going to do.
That was at the time when I just had like
Call those discussions.
yeah, I had like stacks of supercar magazines and stuff, and all this inspiration for crazy ideas. And
Well, I heard you talking on a podcast today on the way down here about diamond stitching.
yeah, let's not. That's just
I
we don't
find
need to
out
do
things
that
on
anymore.
podcasts. I really don't.
Yeah, we don't need to do that. It was good there.
Dude.
That was before they did it on every single
14,
vehicle.
Yes, 14 years ago. Though.
Yeah,
14
yeah.
years ago was a long time.
Yeah,
time
what's
ago.
Jonathan Ward? He doesn't use diamond stitching at all.
I don't think he does.
That's what he said. That was
Oh
where
yeah,
the
well he's got
conversation-
pretty good style.
Yeah.
But there was a time it was pretty
Oh, it was
cool.
neat.
At that time, it wasn't in any like production vehicles, and it wasn't in
Anything in our
right
world.
now. I think if let's say there's 2,000 center console manufacturers, boat manufacturers, 1,900 of them have diamond stitch in them, and then most of the OEM cars as well.
Of course, the thing I remember mostly about, and I won't mention any names, was the interior in that car.
You can mention names.
No, I'm
this
not
is a
gonna
safe place. This is a safe place.
I remember,
and nobody like
I've
Josh
never
says,
seen your father so mad. Ever
nobody listens to this.
in my life. He was. I think if he could have got a hold of that guy, he would have killed him.
Yeah, probably.
I remember the first time I got in the car in Columbus. It was a hot, sweaty day, and I sat down in it. And when I got to get out, you know how your legs, I'm wearing shorts.
The seat came with you?
Seat came with me because of the stickiness of the perspiration from my legs. Yeah, the seat just fell out.
Yeah, that was first round.
It's kind of like what happened to his business. It just
Is that
fell out.
Is that really what happened?
Is it still? He's still around. I'm not mentioning names. All I got to say is avant-garde is the best.
Oh,
Just
yeah.
absolutely the best.
Yeah, we love Jeremy.
I mean, I'll throw in little
You
things.
got, you got another interior coming up, don't you?
No, I don't. No, I don't. No, we're going pretty cheap on this next car. But
Trying to prime
no,
the
but when that Pontiac goes places, I always tell people, I said, you're missing the best part of this car. Look inside.
Yeah.
And we're kind of getting off on a different track here, but people do tend to just ignore interiors, and that is so well done.
Well, we won't say the name of the upholstery shop. We'll just refer to it as Jeremy Carlson until we get some sort of a sponsorship from the name of the
Oh, the
upholstery
one
shop.
that screwed up the vet?
No.
you're
So
saying-
Jeremy Carlson did a phenomenal
Jeremy
job.
Carlson's
Jeremy
hand.
Carlson.
We're
Yeah.
blowing his horn right now.
But that car truly is the car wouldn't be what it is without that interior.
Well,
And
I
it really
remember
does-
you telling me when we were building it, I said, who's going to do the interior? I won't let you take it to any place but avant-garde.
Jeremy
Carlson.
Sorry.
and company.
And company.
Emporium.
Jeremy Carlson's the only guy that can do that.
Sundries.
And what's really amazing is he never publicizes that car at all. It's not on his website. I've never seen it.
Yeah,
When you interviewed him, he talked about his Miranda-built car was his favorite, so it's not his favorite.
Well, so I mean, for him, he's very techy. I don't know that that he sees that vintage style.
And we didn't do any. We didn't do any 3D printing on it and things like that. He's a very design techie oriented guy. I would agree with you, but it is just beautiful. It's just elegant.
It is.
Yeah, it is.
Did a hell of
The
a
whole
job.
car is elegant. But the car kind of misses. Well, we're getting on a different path now. We'll get to that car later because there's a lot.
We got a few in between because we followed up. C1 RS was, like you said, that was probably what put us on the map.
Yeah.
And then it was also kind of a learning curve, a lesson in what and how to build the next one.
Yeah, right.
Make it very drivable, kind of quick.
I learned that I have to somehow put the clamps on Jeremy and say, this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
I can't let him
How's that work out?
run free.
I feel like you're not the best at that either. I've been on the receiving end of several of those.
Yeah.
We should just, and then they just kind of get legs.
Yeah.
You said you're a builder creator. It's just part of it.
Well, the process of this is what I really enjoy. I can honestly say that I don't particularly get a big kick out of going to car shows, and it's nice to get an award, and I like the award when it gives you guys acknowledgement. The people out in the shop.
Yep.
There are some very talented people out there. I mean,
Some of the best.
the Pontiac, John York did most of that himself, and God, I mean, and the body work, and it's a combination of a lot of people. Joe that does all the exhaust systems on stuff. I don't know all the people personally, but they're just really good, quality, talented people, and that's got to be the biggest struggle is trying to find and keep people like that. But anyway, so we got done with C1 RS and won a lot of awards, and then I just
Did we slide the pickup truck in?
No, the pickup truck was being done before the Corvette. They were kind of done at the same time.
The pickup truck's kind of a cool story because it started with just a Roadster Shop chassis. And
Yeah,
you did the majority of the work on it, which a feather in your cap is that still to this day, we just recently did an F100 and I had to steal a few of your ideas on how to make the hood work. properly.
Well,
So I took a little bit of your
it was
hood
kind of a
hinge
crude way.
and then made it.
Yeah.
We tweaked it a bit, but
Yeah, it goes way back to the very beginning.
I don't know if the website goes back that far.
we had.
It does. It's on there. But you got to go to 15 or 16, I think.
I was checking earlier to try to get it queued up, and I seem as though we have a problem with the.
There, right there. There it is. Oh, it doesn't load.
Yeah, we've got an issue here with the website.
But pictures didn't load.
While we had finished the 32 Ford, and you were working on. I bought a pickup truck. There's always an inspiration for all of these cars somewhere hidden in there. The 32 is just a car I always wanted. The 56 pickup, I have very fond. One of the last cars or vehicles my father, when he could drive before he went blind, he had a dark blue, white top. We're talking about white tops all the time.
man had good taste.
Ford custom cab 56 Ford pickup. It was just a cool truck at the time. And yeah, that's a lousy picture because it's not, the stance is not right there, but that's more like, anyway, so I thought, I always wanted one of these. So I bought a pickup truck from a guy online. That was websites,
Yeah.
It was advertised online. In Washington, and I thought, well, Washington's got to be a good vehicle. And it actually was pretty solid, other than the roof was rusted out.
Strange thing to rust out.
Yeah, they have foam
behind the
that they,
headliner.
but so I thought, I had a nice little shop out at our farm, and I started working on this. So I bought a chassis, and I tore the thing all apart and stripped it to nothing, and redid the fenders and moved the wheelbase ahead and pancaked the hood. I did all the body work. It might not have been perfect. You made it perfect by the time you got through
It was
with it.
pretty nice.
It was, let's say it was 80%.
Yeah.
It wasn't 100%. But I brought it to you in primer, but had all of those moldings machined and fabricated a lot of things out of aluminum. The box was completely fabricated out of aluminum and bonded together. And it had some trick things in it. One of the
was pretty
first
cool.
floors that tipped up, and
Yep.
it had air ride, which I would never do again on any vehicle. Sorry for air ride people, but all of it was underneath the back end of the bed, and it was a neat truck. And it goes on after you guys painted it, tore it apart, blocked it, painted it, put it, reassembled it. We take it to Goodguys, and it wins truck of the year. And so, in the meantime, you're working on C1 RS, and my bank account is
Yeah. Oof.
depleting.
Yeah. Can happen.
That's the sleepless nights time.
I think Troy Ladd had a great quote. He said, when he has customers out to the shop, he said, you're here to have fun. We're not going to talk about money. We're not going to talk about timelines. We're just going to enjoy the car.
Yeah, okay. We won't talk. You want me not talk about money? No.
No, we could. Yeah, it's part of the part of the process. That's what makes this all happen.
Whatever I've spent here, I'll have to honestly say I got good value for services received, and
I
that's
appreciate that.
well. I ran a business. I know what overhead's all about. I know what benefits are for employees is all about. I mean, this isn't that far from what I did. It's just a different process, and you're not here to make friends. You're here to make a profit at the end of the day. It's to support you and your family and your kids and all the other stuff, and that's what you're here for.
But isn't it nice when you can make friends?
It is. I mean, this relationship, and I'm not bullshitting at all when I say this, has been one of the highlights of my life for the last 15 years. It really has, and I mean that very sincerely. It's for some reason, and I don't know if it was. My wife always says divine guidance. I don't know where she gets that, but she says that all the time, and I think there was some divine guidance for me to hook my wagon onto you guys. I mean, keep in mind, I had you build a car when the Roadster Shop was this little dot on this table.
Yeah.
Now it represents the whole building. I mean, I used to tell people the Roadster, who are they? Who are they? Now you say, you have a Roadster Shop built car? Holy shit. It's gone from the very little beginning, small,
No, it was humble beginnings.
humble
for sure.
beginnings to being, I never say that you're the top builder in the country, but when people ask me about it, never heard about you, I say they have to be in the top 10 builders of cars in the country. And I said, they're probably number one in the chassis business. So I said, I point things out, go to the Barrett Jackson Cup this year. there's 5 cars up there, or there's 6 because there was a people's choice, and which didn't count. I mean, it was a nice car, but it wasn't counted competition. 4 out of the other 5 cars that were competing, all 4 out of the 5 had Roadster Shop chassis under them. That's really saying something. I mean,
Yeah.
so, I mean,
Yeah, it's definitely come a long way. It's
Yeah,
it's
it really has.
flattering and
And-
humbling sometimes.
yeah.
To
Well,
see
it's
that, but
the ingenuity of you guys, how you've put this together is just amazing to me. I mean, there again, I started small and worked up, and people could probably say the same thing, but the use of technology and how you've integrated that all into, I mean, I tell people the Pontiac, I said the first thing we did was scan the car. And we designed the frame, or they designed the frame off of the scans. I said, there's no tape measure out there where you're out and out measuring and writing down on little pencils and pieces of paper what dimensions are. That's all done digitally.
Yeah, but we didn't cut it in half and ship it halfway across the country either, though.
No, well, I know, but, well, it's just
with the technology we have nowadays, though, we can do that. Yeah. So we've got a lot of. There's so many different people that listen to this, and you've got some established shops, you've got some up and comers, and you probably have some guys who are just building cars in their garage and trying to make a career. And for us, I mean, you were certainly a big part of our success. That it's very important to a shop to have the right customer, because that can make or break a shop that's getting started. If you hook up with the wrong guy, or getting hooked up with the right guy can really help launch your career. And what would you say to some of these young guys that are trying to get started? How do they find that right customer? How do they attract a guy or earn your attention, your respect to get that customer in the door?
That's a pretty hard question to answer. I guess maybe I have a unique ability to judge character fairly well. I mean, I think when I met you guys and your parents, and that it was a kind of a comfort level. It just, I kind of looked it around and I said, yeah, they don't have the best shop in the world, but they're genuine, they're honest, have somebody's word that they're going to stand behind it. You're looking at really some pretty good quality work. And maybe it was more a stroke of luck that I just started with you, but you have to understand Ring Brothers, who I admired immensely.
Who are they?
Sorry, I didn't mean to bring up. But they're only 2 hours from me. You're 4.5 hours from me. But somehow, I mean, I didn't know they existed when I started here, and they were in their infancy also.
Yeah, we kind of came up.
You kind of came up together, and you know, if the world was a little different, timing was a little different, maybe I would have ended up in Spring Green. I don't know, but I'm glad where I ended up. It's like I said, it's been fun. It's an expensive hobby. You better not get into this unless you're
prepared to spend
dollars. And I'm fortunate enough that I guess I can do that. But it's all good value for what you get. But
we'll go through a couple after, the C1 RS. I know the Impala was kind of the first one of like, what are you guys doing with the Survivor Series thing?
Yeah,
Well, air quotes.
The Corvette, I think, led into that a little bit, though. When we did the mid-year, because that was you pulled the reins back and wanted something that was a little more resto mod.
Yeah, right.
Original-ish.
Yeah. There was a real attempt with the 64 Corvette to keep it as original as possible. I mean, people look at that car, and for those that don't know it, we built the car in 2014. I bought it in 2014 at a car show at a little dealership down the street from me. No idea what I was going to do with it.
It's a nice car.
No vision of, God, I want to build another Corvette. I got to find one. I'm walking up and down looking at 30, 40 cars at this car show, and there's a blue Corvette sitting there with a cardboard sign on the windshield in magic marker, for sale. And I went back and talked to the man that owned it, and I gave him an offer, and he said, well, I've offered that already. And so there's probably pictures
that was a great car.
What a great
that was when I bought it there, that picture. Yeah. That's when I brought it here. And so he said, well, I've been offered that for it already. So I said, well, let me think about it. I came back a little while later, and I said, well, I'm going to make you one last offer. And because I'm going to go home now. And I gave him an offer, and he said, let me think about it. And his wife was standing right behind him and looked over his shoulder. She says, we won't think long. We're not thinking long.
It's the right time to make that offer.
So 10 minutes later, he comes tapping me on the shoulder. I guess I'll take your offer. So he delivered the car, and as it turned out, he had bought the car new. I didn't even know that when I bought it. He handed me the keys the day I paid for it, and he said, I've owned this car for 50 years and a month.
Wow.
So one owner car, he had said it had never been wrecked, and it did have minimal damage in the back corner. He was pulling a boat trailer with it one time, and he jackknifed it and put some.
Where does the hitch go on it?
He had a hitch on it when I bought
Corvette.
it.
Imagine seeing that going
Yeah,
down the road.
imagine. So anyhow, he's still alive. He's 80-some years old. He was a professor at the university in La Crosse. And anyhow, I mean, most of that car had all the original body. Jeremy, you probably have to admit that was probably one of the best bodied Corvettes that you've built. Now, you've built
100%.
a dozen of them since then.
100% it was.
But it was. And that's key to building a really nice car, is finding the right car to start with.
And the only way to build a Corvette is starting with
Yeah. So I mean, there's pictures in there of the bonding seams all intact. I mean,
clean.
it's really amazing. That's probably after they stripped it though. But anyway, so we brought that down here. That's all original bonding seams there and on the front fenders. So that car evolved, and I don't know. You were just redesigning the chassis, the Corvette chassis.
Yeah.
That's the damage. That was that's the corner that got hit. So, but that's the only damage that was on it. So,
Yeah, I mean, all these, if you think about it, just about every car we've built for you, you've been right, like kind of leading the charge of what that trend was. I mean, we did the Dearborn Deuce. That was right at the beginning. We'd built one before it, and then we'd built yours. When we did the C1 RS, that kind of was
Started the Pro Touring.
Yeah, right at the beginning of the really high-end Pro Touring stuff. And then we moved into this, and this kind of led the way for, like, we had done one just before this, a 67 with a wide track front end.
Yeah.
And this kind of changed the stance, the look, and I guess kind of developed the narrow track front C2 Corvette chassis, which really
insisted that car had more offset in the front wheels.
Yeah, it really made that car.
And I said, how are we going to achieve that? Because that's one thing that bothers me about every car, that you don't take that into consideration.
Yep.
I have people look at that Corvette to this day, and they look at it and they say, God, just the wheel tire stance combination is just perfect. And I say, do you realize we sucked in the frame rails 1.5 inches or 2 inches on each side?
Yeah, 2 inches per side.
So you had to custom made headers because no purchase headers would fit on it anymore. That's all to get that offset in the front wheels to make that car look like that. And
Yeah.
Offset is...
It really is everything. Sometimes you're just, it's an impossible hurdle to overcome, but for this platform, that car, I mean, it's really a simple recipe. I mean, it's very much a stock.
Oh, it's
Corvette,
made to look stock. The interior is all stitched exactly original. It looks original, but it's all leather. Even the sun visors are leather. Even the headlining is leather. So it's just
visors?
What?
Yeah, Carlson didn't do the interior in it. So
No, actually, I purchased most of that.
yeah, you get sun visors when you either do it yourself or take it somewhere else. Not
They
Did
didn't.
the Catalina have sun visors?
Yes, it does. They're Alcantara.
Got lucky.
Yeah.
Must have been
Why don't you get
must
sun
have been
visors usually?
aftermarket.
No, not from the
something.
German
But you get a
Carlson.
trunk.
Didn't have.
get
Oh, you
an
get a
You get a
trunk.
very
all right.
expensive trunk.
The nice. He's got to be an ass guy.
Does he have
Carlson.
trunk? Does he have a trunk fetish?
Oh, he does. Yeah, I think he has like a weird, like lays in him naked and like rolls around, and he's got a
I
weird.
can't
trunk
imagine
thing.
what that trunk cost in that.
Keep going.
I'll just leave it there. That's far enough.
Let your imagination take it the rest of the way.
Yeah. Every car we do, he starts in the trunk. But
Yeah. Well, he started the trunk. He did the trunk first, and
back to the Corvette, which is a cool car. Also,
I mean, you said it's a simple recipe, but at the same time, the car's iconic. And how many times has that been replicated? That same exact,
Yeah, there's been like 10 Corvettes that I could think of with just those wheels on it.
yeah.
yeah, that's right.
stands.
For those that don't know it, the wheels were designed. That was a collaboration of, I think, somebody found pictures of Serve One.
I mean, it was kind of based off of popular 60s knockoff. I mean, you saw some inspiration from everything. I mean,
But the wheel is really off of CREV1, Serve 1. Are you familiar with that?
No, that
Come
I'm
on
not.
now. Yeah, that's where we got the idea.
I just Googled a bunch
I
of
don't have a
stuff, like
picture.
old race car
Yeah, that
stuff.
was like an old IndyCar.
There was
wheel.
an Indy car that sold for $2 million
Okay.
at Barrett Jackson. It was driven by Arcus Duntov. When it was built, it had Hallebrand-style bias plier tires on it. And then the early 60s, when this car was built, there it is right there. If you get a close-up
Oh,
of the
no,
wheel,
yeah, I do remember.
they're identical.
I didn't know the name of it, but I knew
Serve
it
one.
was IndyCar.
Corvette experimental race vehicle. That was driven at Pikes Peak, raced by Arcus Duntov. It was built in the late 60s, 68, 69. Or, not 60, 58, 59, 60. And then in 61 or 2, it was taken back to their studio and they made it into a show car. And they took it to all the new car shows. But in that time frame, Indy had gone from bias plies tires and Hallebrand style wheels to slicks.
Yeah.
So that's how and they developed those wheels. And
And then Chris Gray redeveloped them.
yeah.
That was
He designed them so
that
that
was
we
his
could
handiwork
manufacture
there.
them.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's it. So that was the first car. In
And
fact,
that car, you liked it so much that you bought it twice.
yeah, there again, can't fall in love with things that can't love you back. I decided in 2017 to sell the car, so I sold it at Barrett Jackson and brought extremely good money. Changed hands twice after that. And last year, a year or so ago, somebody said, "I just saw your old Corvette on eBay." And by God, it was. I just couldn't believe it. Why the person didn't take it back to auction, because I think they could have probably gotten more for it. So I bought it back for something less than I sold it for, but I still paid dearly for it, but it's worth every penny of it. And it's kind of, every now and then you have something you probably shouldn't have sold, and that's one of them, I guess. The worst I can do is sell it again for a profit. Yeah, I didn't make any money the first
Cutting
time.
us back in on that one, right?
But no, but I'm trying to
That's kind of like that lifelong warranty, the lifelong like profit that you could potentially make. Also, that goes both ways.
I may be able to make back what I lost.
I think
then
you're
I'm
pretty
even.
good on that one.
And we always reference that one as like when we tell this story, like when customers ask about building a car, and we pretty much level with them that don't do this as an investment.
No, you don't.
By any means.
Do
but
all your investments and then spend
elsewhere.
the winnings here.
But we always use the example as like, if there was one car, that's the car that, like, because I know what we charged for it. Take the car out of it, you had to have either broken even or made a few dollars.
No, I didn't make any money, but I probably got after I paid the commission, I probably got within 10% of what I spent.
That's a win. So you made
That's a win.
an exuberant
Did you
amount
have
of money.
10% of fun? Did you have 10%
Oh
of
God,
fun?
I actually look at
20%
this.
of fun.
I look at this as, okay, so let's say I build a car, and hypothetical numbers, it costs $300,000, and I sell it 5 years later for $200,000. I've lost $100,000. I just amortize that over, it's $20,000 a year, and I look and say, I can have $20,000 a year for the fun, and that's how you look at it.
Yeah.
I mean, I could go to Las Vegas and blow $20,000 on a weekend if I wanted to. Not going to do that.
You
I'd
couldn't
rather
have
blow
that
it on
much
this.
fun though in Las Vegas.
No, I mean, it's
Or you
just
could catch something that $20,000 wouldn't take away too. Depends on how you spend that money.
leave it to you to talk about. Anyway,
Go back to the Corvette.
back to the
Which is a
Corvette.
beautiful car.
Get off that Miata thing.
Yeah, the Corvette was that was a very cool car. And also, like, I think that helped us realize a lot of, like, building cars to drive and enjoy more, because the interior was something you really pushed on us, that it was relatively inexpensive. And
It was.
when the car was all said and done, it looked beautiful. It didn't take anything away from the car.
It still won a GM Design Award.
So it
Even
was,
with the production, Al Knock, that's the name. That's who did the interior. I sent the seats to them. I sent the dash to them. They covered it in leather. They did a beautiful job, but it's more of a production place. And it just works. Right. It works good. The car goes on to win a GM Design Award at SEMA. So did C1 RS. I got a couple of those, but it was just a neat car. It other than the transmission now that you tell me is the worst in the world.
well, surprisingly, it's still working pretty
Yeah, it
decent
works pretty
in that
well. I
car,
mean, I've
but-
driven it to car shows. I bought it back. It's down in Arizona. I'm having a good time with it. It's just a car that I don't think I'll ever lose a dime on it. It's just,
No, I mean that car.
it's got as much appeal today as it did in 2014 when it was built.
That one's pretty
Yeah.
timeless.
Yeah. And it's so flawless in the fit and the finish and the bumpers, the way they're tucked and the doors and everything about it. It's just a neat car. It's kind of the right color with the right wheels. It just works. It just works well.
It really does. Yeah, that was one of those cars that I thoroughly enjoyed putting test miles on.
Yeah.
It's really an enjoyable car to drive, even with the transmission.
Even with the transmission that's in it. That's an inside joke.
Yeah, it's
I
got,
have to listen to podcasts to find out my car has the worst transmission ever made in
Well,
it.
you've driven it, you know.
It works pretty well. It does.
that was right.
That was a good one.
Yeah, that was right
in
at-
our Corvette. We put or our Camaro.
Yeah.
We put
Well, that's because
2 or 3 in.
you beat the shit out of it so much. I don't.
It was
we
crap.
couldn't even do
yeah,
it.
it was crap the day it went in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but that was right when that Legend, which they're out of business now, right?
They're out of
They're
business.
gone.
Well, the reason
Wonder why.
I don't know. Maybe because the transmission sucked and didn't work.
I actually wanted.
then they sell transmissions, right? So
I wanted
can't
the
really have-
transmission.
it's not a good business
I
model,
talked you
is it?
into that, Jeremy.
yeah,
Because we didn't have to remodel the humps. It's
Right.
more compact. It was a smaller 5-speed transmission.
I think to make it smaller, though, they left all the good shit out.
Maybe they did. I
The
don't
parts that
think-
make it shift.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
but fortunately, Tremec's got that. It's a TKX that they finally. The 5 speed's always been plagued with just a lot of bad shit. You know, the first to second gear shift was always brutal. They vibrate, they make noise, and
2,
now
3 under power was about.
you couldn't do it.
Functional.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But now that TKX is kind of they finally came out with the solution. So, and it fits. It's low profile, fits under there. It's,
yeah. Anyway, that's a great car. I'm glad to have it back. It's a little noisy. The side exhausts are a little noisy, but you know it's running. when you start it. But for those that don't know, it's got an LT1 in it, which is the new direct board injection, and it runs beautifully.
It really does, and that's a great power level for that car. Really, we do a lot of those C2 Corvettes with probably excessive power. You know, LT4s. We've got
This car does not
supercharged
need any more
LS3.
power.
Yeah,
What is it?
The power to weight ratio.
460 horsepower in that car. It'll take the tires, as big of tires as they are, and it'll just, the car goes side to side in the rear end when you get on it. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it definitely, it's that sweet spot where you can really stand on it and run through the gears, and it gives you enough excitement where
Yeah,
it's not going to kill you. Not going to hurt
That's
you.
part of the reason I wanted to buy it back, because I always thought it was a kind of a fun car to drive, neat car to look at. It's timeless. Just kind of the history. I'm the second owner if I discount the 2 people that bought it in between. So
But it just sat in a car collection, didn't it? It was a museum in between.
yeah, the first guy that bought it was from Lakeland, Florida. He had it in a car collection for a year, 2 years. Then he took it to Barrett Jackson, Palm Beach. It was bought by a friend of John Staluppi's, who buys a lot of cars at Barrett Jackson. His friend's also a dealer. And they took it to Staluppi's museum, and it sat there for 2 years. When I sold the car, it had 500 miles on it. It's got 600 and some on it now. So when I bought it back, it had 560 miles. Somebody had driven it a whole 60 miles in 5 years.
It's a shame.
I think it just turned over 600 miles. So
So that was kind of like in our contract for the Impala that we built next, is that we were going to repo it if you didn't put over 500 miles on it.
well, the other car got 13,000, I think, miles before I sold it. I drove it a lot,
Yeah, that was.
and that's another car I probably shouldn't have sold. I don't know why I sell this stuff.
It's car ADD.
I don't want to say I don't need to, but it just,
and Chris
Chris McPhee
McPhee's
bought
got
it,
right?
and yeah, he's got it, and I made him promise if he ever sold it that he would sell it back to me. Of course, I saw it on eBay about 6 or 8 months ago. He was asking $249,000 for it. That he paid a lot less for that. And so I called him up. I said, I thought you were going to call me when you wanted to sell it. He said, I don't think I'm really going to sell it. I'm just out there fishing. I'm a car dealer. I'm going to see if somebody's dumb enough to buy it for that, I'll probably take it. And I said, yeah, well, you probably should. But anyway,
Just like that, the car never sold.
then I told him I bought this car. He wanted to buy it. He said, if you ever sell that, call me.
Yeah.
The other person that said the same thing, and of course, there's all kinds of promises in the world, but the other one is
Oh, Matt.
Yeah.
Yeah, Matt.
You know, I just can't figure the part I can't figure it about it. All of this
That's
is
too damn tall.
You're on number 7 car. This guy builds 1 or 2. He gets his car in the booth here in the studio.
Yeah.
Where am I?
You know,
I'm on the dirty floor mat when you walk in the front door.
Yeah, we step on you every morning and every night.
The rug. You step on me all the time.
There's just something about them. I mean, it was a childhood dream. It was so iconic, that car. It was
It's black and white. Too.
Oh, yeah,
it works.
yeah, Wooderson's car from Dazed and
So
Confused.
whose
and
childhood dream?
all of ours, I think.
Well, because
It's
you're
more like a high school.
You know,
dream.
Yeah,
Dazed and confused.
you know, I've never owned a Chevelle.
Really?
No.
You should have one. You should experience it.
No, it's kind of in between.
You like a big car or a small car?
Well,
like
obviously,
the vets or the-
obviously, I
or
got
the
a
big
Corvette
boys?
and I got a '65 Pontiac that's a land yacht.
Right. Yeah, like you said, it's in between. I think that
Yeah.
it doesn't.
Well, I don't. It's just too many of them.
You can blame that
Yeah, I
one.
was
on
gonna say,
me.
you've
I
always-
love that
the
picture,
masses.
so.
Every car we've built has always been like a 1 year only or a specific model year or something that tied to, you know, a special time in your history.
Yeah, right.
So it's always been, you know, the 32 Ford, 1 year
Yeah,
only,
yeah.
56 F100, 1
Yeah,
year
year only,
only.
yeah.
62 Corvette was a kind of a 1 year
yeah.
only, but 2 year only for the body style.
Yeah.
The 65 Catalina was 1 year only with all that trim.
Well, no,
Well,
1 year.
66 changed.
66 got a little different.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it changed
yeah.
quite a bit.
Yeah.
The
Yeah, you're right.
63 Impala was what, your first car?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's interesting. I never really realized that, but you're right. Because no offense, Brad, we're building a beautiful Corvette for Brad, but he's got a 71. 70 was the year.
Yeah.
71's tough when you lose that other headlight.
Yeah. Well, actually, of
rear
all the
bumper
Chevelles,
matched
that is
better.
my favorite year, though. It's a neat car.
It is cool. Is
But-
Joe still using that? Do you hear much about that? Is that car getting used?
Rogan owns it now, doesn't
Yeah.
he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Last I heard, he was putting some serious miles on it, but he's also been driving the shit out of that Camaro. So I don't know if the Chevelle's getting the same love.
Has he ever been here?
No.
Doesn't know
I
what
don't
he's,
think
doesn't know what he's
I don't
missing.
think he's got a tremendous amount of free time.
Yeah, probably not. It's just he'd be impressed.
My name's Andy Stumpf. I'm a former Navy SEAL and the host of the Cleared Hot podcast. On the new Ironclad show, Change Agents, I talk to people risking it all to find solutions to seemingly unsolvable problems.
So there are hundreds of thousands of some of the poorest people in the world digging cobalt out of the ground.
Taking out a trafficker, force multiplying, because right then you take down the network, another guy's gonna pop back up for sure.
771 million humans are drinking dirty water. 2,000 kids will die today. You know, we're not going fast enough to solve this problem.
Change Agents, an Ironclad original, coming soon to all major podcast platforms and Ironclad's YouTube channel at This Is Ironclad.
So what's next? So you did the
finished-
Impala.
Yeah, we did that car. In the meantime, I bought the Model A that you guys built. I bought one Roadster Shop car.
Yeah.
That was a cute little car, a little blown Model A
cool.
Roadster. So I had that at the same time I had this, and then the not falling in love with anything, you can't love you back. I took both of those cars to Barrett Jackson, and both of them bought really good money. I mean, the Model A brought almost $100,000, and most of you know that Model A's just don't sell for $100,000, even if they're custom. I mean,
Well, when they got that H&H supercharged flathead.
flathead. That was
helps a little
that was a
bit.
neat car.
That's a $60,000 motor.
Yeah, that's 40 at least, wasn't it? Yeah,
Something like
Well,
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's at least
Yeah.
like.
Well, I was putting 20 grand in oil.
that's what I was going to say. Yeah.
It's 20 grand for the Roadster Shop. So I sold those, and then somehow the Pontiac came along, and
Yeah, it's
I'm down in Arizona.
Yeah. Well, it's both of our fault because you found it.
Well, yeah, but how that came about is that I'm down in Arizona. My wife and I had just decided to buy a home down there, and we've now spent 6 months there, a year. And I'm sitting there with nothing to do. I'd sold my cars at Barrett Jackson, and I thought to myself, you know, I really I bought a car just like that, brand new, when I was 19 years old, a 65 dark blue 2+2. In fact, I have pictures on my phone. But so I called Jeremy up.
And this is before this. I mean, you said several times, every car has been your last car. That you're.
Well, I know
that you're not going to build another one. This is the last one.
In fact,
Even this one. This was the last one.
Yeah. Wheel Hub did a great article. And by the way, Stephen Kim is he's the best writer in the world as far as I'm concerned. He's
evolved into the best writer in the world.
Yeah, he did not very good when he was at Popular Hot Rodding, right? So good now. Phenomenal now.
The 2 articles he did about me, I couldn't ask for. First of all, he was nice enough to let me read him before he published them. But he wrote a wonderful article about the 64 Corvette. And the article was more about me, my background. And, I remember him saying there's a big difference, some rich dude that comes in with a check and has a car build versus a genuine car guy that just loves cars and now has the resources to do it. It was a great quote.
Yeah.
Anyhow, he wrote an article about the Pontiac in Wheel Hub when it was first done. And the name of the article is The Last Hurrah, because I told him, I said, this is the last car I'm building. So
Can they redact that? Yeah. Do they have to publish
did we do the Impala before the Pontiac?
No, that was after.
Was it really? Yeah. Or is it? I'm owned both at the same time. I don't know. At some place. So anyway, I called Jeremy up and I said, I've been thinking about building, and you've never done any big sled like this. This is a huge car, and it's just out of the box. In fact, I remember, I've listened to too many of your podcasts. I listened to Bob Johnson when you had him on. And he went on and on about that car. He said, there's got to be he said, that car, I don't know what he said. He checks all the boxes, but it's really, there's no place for it. It's not a hot rod. It's not a street machine. It's not anything. It's just out there by itself. And it kind of is.
Yep.
I've showed it some, not that you do this for shows, but they don't know where to put it. They really don't know where to put it. It's
well, judging by that picture right there, I'd tell you where I'd put it.
Well,
because at that stage right there, before it was built, I'm gonna go ahead and tell you that's.
But what you have to, Jeremy had no idea what a 65 Pontiac 2+2 looked like.
Nor should he.
Not even
either.
Who should?
So I'm in Arizona on the phone. He's up here and he's looking at his computer. He says, that car's got some really good lines. And I said, while we're at it, and really my whole thought was this would be a great platform to put this monstrous Mercury racing motor in. That was the whole idea, because the engine bay, you could live in it if you wanted to. You could have a small apartment in it.
Put 2 LS motors side by side.
It's that big. So I thought, boy, this is a great, and a lot of power, big car. And I said, oh, by the way, let's design a set of 8 lug wheels for it. And he says to me, correct me if I'm wrong, what are 8 lug wheels?
Yeah. It wasn't not a Pontiac guy.
Take them off the dually, maybe.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, 8 lug wheels are 1-ton Ford.
Yeah.
So anyhow, that was the whole conversation. And so we finally decided this is something we should talk about doing. Had to find a car. I'm all over the internet looking at auctions, and somehow, Phil, I think you found this
it was in
on
Vegas,
Craigslist in Las Vegas. On Craigslist.
It's one of those that look too good to be true.
Yeah.
It's fake kind of ad.
And so I'm only 4 hours from Las Vegas. I get in the car and drive up there. And a friend of mine's with me. We're walking around. It's in a carport. That car is 7 feet wide, and the carport is 8 feet. So next to a mobile home. Can't really stand back and look at it or anything. I finally opened the trunk and grabbed the original tire iron lug nut wrench out of it, and I laid on the ground and scooted along, tapping the rocker panels. And I looked at my friend Jim, who was with me. I said, Jim, I think this car doesn't have hardly any rust on it.
Which that's pretty standard procedure when you're looking at a car, any classic car. Grab that spare tire jack and just give it some taps.
Just bang on it, whether you're going to buy it or not. Yeah.
So I ended up buying
off.
that car and sending it back here. And we have pictures of that car in bare metal. And it has the original floor. It has the original rocker panels.
I think we did a trunk floor.
The trunk floor had pinholes
patch or something?
because the weather strips always dried up in desert cars. and the trunks leaked.
Yeah.
And the only other rust was on the back quarters where water leaked inside of the trunk. I mean,
Unbelievably
and
clean car.
what most people don't know is that car, there's a little tiny hole there. But you know what they look like, most of them look like around the windshields and back glass.
Yep.
They're terrible. That's the extent of rust that's after it was blasted.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a very clean car.
Turned out
And
to
they
be
make
car
zero
never really been
replacement.
wrecked. What?
They make zero replacement parts for that, so it's
They
a
don't
good
make
one to
any.
find a
They don't
solid
make.
car.
I mean, if that was a GTO, you'd go buy a new quarter panel for it and put it on if it had a bad one. This, you make it from scratch. So I've had the good luck. There's the worst rust right there.
This is some of John York's finest work too. Look at
Yeah,
that.
I mean-
Not only do you see John York with a full head of hair, but you get to see his.
Does he
fab
shave it now
skills.
or did he lose it?
Yeah, it's shaved now.
Both.
Why does he shave it? He had quite a bit of hair. Yeah. Anyhow, he did an amazing job on that car, and
He's a hell of a craftsman.
yeah, it really is, and it's quite a work of art. There again, ended up way more than I thought it would cost to build, but the end result is just phenomenal.
I mean, at least 50% of the bill had to be the interior.
No. That was cheap. That was cheap. That was cheap compared. But when you look at the renderings that Chris did of it, it's almost identical. I mean, the engine looks exactly. And I heard this back. Bobby Alloway was a judge on this car when it was down there and at Barrett Jackson. And somebody said he just couldn't get over the color of the motor. He said he just loved the car, thought the car was phenomenal, but why did you paint the motor that color?
Yeah.
It's a Pontiac color. You got to, it's bringing it all together again, So, anyway.
I'm still blown away by the amount of people that see that and have a story about a
About one.
Pontiac
Yeah.
2+2.
Oh,
I didn't even know the car
right.
existed, but everybody's got a story that their uncle, their grandpa, their dad,
Oh yeah,
their
it's
neighbor
always
had
it's
one.
always somebody my age or older.
Yeah.
Yeah, I made it
my
like,
aunt had one. Yeah.
I made it like 36 years without ever hearing the Catalina and 2+2, but somehow
Now, yeah.
everybody
said.
had one.
Oh man,
Well, it
it's
was
just like
It was a neat car. It was I had a brand new one, and it was a high performance car, and nobody understands the significance of how this car came about or why they even built it. But for those out there that don't understand, the GTO came out in 1964. That was before that. You only had the choice of a full size car. Your performance cars were Impalas, Pontiac Catalinas, Ford full-size Fords with 406 4-speeds. You had all of that stuff. Yep. And now all of a sudden the mid-size cars come out. And I read someplace that Pontiac estimated they'd sell 16,000 GTOs the first year. They sold 60,000. So 4 times what they thought they were going to sell. Well, obviously, if you're a marketing genius, you're going to say, well, all of a sudden our big cars are now insignificant. How are we going to keep that relative to somebody's needs in the performance end of cars? So they put a 420. The smallest horsepower you get in a 2+2 was 338 horsepower. It came with dual exhaust, bigger tires, heavy suspension, bucket seats, and so it was. There is not Catalina anyplace on that car. Everybody calls it a Catalina, but it's really a 2+2. It is a Catalina body, but anyway. But
I just love the silhouette on that thing, like the side profile and the lines.
it's just got
sexy when it's sitting down that low with big wheels.
Yeah.
I want to take my wife out to a nice dinner in that car. It's kind of got that look.
Not the
Like a
easiest
nice
car to
Loud.
drive.
I don't want to parallel park it though against a curb with the wheels that are on it, but
Yeah, it's got a lot of horsepower. A lot of horsepower.
you just toss the valet at Lowry's
Yeah, you wouldn't.
100 and say keep it up front. I'll park it.
yeah, that's
Probably
a gorgeous car.
of all. I mean, I've got a couple street machines of the street machine of the year, truck of the year, a couple GM design awards with cars you guys built. This car, probably the award that I have that is probably, in my mind, the most significant, and I don't deserve it. I have it. You, everybody here, and John York deserve it. But when we took that to the Grand National Roadster Show a couple years ago, and it won what's called the Triple Gun of Excellence Award, and that's given to the car at the Grand National Roadster Show. It's judged by Charlie Hutton, Daryl Hollenbeck, and what's his name? Cotty Speed Shop.
Zane
Zane Cullen. Those three guys, quite a few years, got together and said, all these plastic trophies that everybody gives out in different classes, we're going to give our award for what we think is the coolest car. And this car was not even on display. It was in your booth. And all of a sudden, I think Phil Smunt came up and he said, we just won the Triple Gun of Excellence Award with this car. And I said, what the heck is that? Well, as it turns out, it's a handmade trophy that's about 2 feet long and a foot high, and all hand formed out of aluminum. It's painted every year by each one of those gentlemen. Paint it and pinstripe it. You would turn it upside down, and it's flat black inside, and it's autographed by all three of them. And it's judged on overall build quality, best body work and gapping, and best paint. And these are three people that I think are pillars of the industry in that area. And if they looked at that car and gave it that award, that's pretty impressive to me.
It is.
That's awesome.
I personally called two of them and emailed one of them to thank them. Most people don't even acknowledge them, but that's a real. I mean, it's got another, but it hasn't won the awards that some of the other cars have. Good, but as the other ones have won, but it's a better car than any of them.
Absolutely.
We showed up to SEMA with when the GM changed to the Chevy Design Award after they killed.
Worst timing.
Yeah,
Timing's never really been our thing.
The car went through COVID. I mean, it's just the timing.
And it lived. It survived.
Well,
we had a mask on the front of it, though.
People still love to see it. I mean, I'm fortunate enough to spend winters in Scottsdale. And Scottsdale it's like a unbelievable place compared to living here in the wintertime. Yeah. And in fact, I'm probably eventually going to keep whatever cars I have, all of them down there, because you can use them a lot. There's a market if you want to sell them. The weather's always good. I just go on and on. But I take it to Cars and Coffee, and I've taken it to some of these Ferrari events and Lamborghinis, and nobody pays much attention until you start it up.
Yeah,
that'll wake some
what
people
in the
up.
hell is in that?
It sounds pissed off.
Not what you expect from that car.
Yeah, right. It's quite a reaction from people, but it's got. In fact, I don't know if you pay much attention when it's been on your website or on Facebook or Instagram. It has gotten. I mean, there's always the goofy comments, or like I wish it had a Pontiac motor in it, stuff like that. But it has gotten more favorable comments and some of the best comments I've ever had on cars. And I actually, when I find a good one, I copy and paste it. I've got like 5 pages on a Word document of all the things that have been said about that car. And it's pretty amazing. It really is.
The people that get it.
They get it.
Just cool.
They get it. It's just well done. I mean, that's all there is to it.
That car, if you remember correct, was a tremendously difficult to get across the finish line. You remember that was at the time when the car is going into final assembly, and probably one of the first cars that we have ever done that has a tremendous amount of trim on it.
Yeah.
Custom bumpers that were modified. Everything that needed to be chrome plated was modified.
Yeah.
And it happens to be at the chrome plating facility that also happens to burn to the ground.
We had to retrieve the bumpers out of
Mishler broke.
He basically put his life on the line.
Yeah,
Josh
absolutely.
Mishler.
He went in a back door when the firemen had shut the place down, said nobody can get in, and snuck in and got those bumpers.
Do you remember the picture? The rear bumper was on a bench.
Yes.
Remember?
Yep.
It was like sitting on a bench, just lightly charred.
But I mean, literally, like
some of them, they were copper plated already.
Yeah.
The world was coming to an end around that car, and it was like
it just didn't. It did not want to get finished.
No,
it was fighting us.
Fought and fought and fought.
But we prevailed.
Yeah, probably should have waited till COVID was over and then bring it out now. But we did start a fad. I mean, there's 2 or 3. Well, you just finished the Survivor car.
Definitely. I think
Which you bothered to put a 15-minute video together about that car, and I think you gave me all of about 2 minutes on mine. So I feel a little cheated. Probably one of the most beautiful cars you ever built.
We're improving our social media
video,
and we should. We got to get it back out to do some cool video stuff with.
Then you did that one. Gouldsby is doing one for Rick Euland, who was that I think about from California. Do you know that? And he's got a white one he's doing. Yeah.
Oh, it's the one we did.
You've met Rick. He had a Suburban on one of the. He was on the tour that we went on.
Tour.
Yeah, he's from California. Anyhow, he had a white car he bought that looked pretty nice. Was going to do Survivor thing. They ended up doing everything. Yeah. It was stripped to nothing, rust repaired, painted. It's going to have the wheels on it, and then Martin Brothers is finally doing.
Yeah.
When I first started this car, I kept looking for more information on that because I'd see them driving that in some of their little TV shows.
Sure.
And I thought, where is this car? Why don't they ever feature it? What's its daily driver?
Yeah, that's Joe Martin's actual daily drive. I mean, he drives the hell out of that thing, which that's a cool car. I mean, that one, when Chad was telling me that they're putting 22s on the back, I'm like, you're fucking crazy. Yeah. What? Why no. 22s? Yeah, absolutely not. They look really good.
Really?
Yeah. Massive wheel opening.
Yeah, the car
20s are not big enough?
The 22 on the back of that car actually looks
What
pretty
wheel
sweet.
are they using?
I'm not sure what
They're not
exactly
using the
the
8-lug
wheel is.
style wheel.
No, but the wheel looks good.
Does it?
Probably get Jesse to do a 22.
Have you seen the car? Have you seen it?
I've never seen it in person.
Yeah,
Is there any pictures of that floating around?
I'd love to see what it looks like, but
It's a good looking car.
yeah, but the wheels make this car. I mean, they just really do. I mean, of course, like you said, the phone rang off the wall saying, "Where can I buy a set of those?"
Yeah,
every
it's not
time
for everyone.
Every
mortgage go to your banker and get a second mortgage.
It's a 3-stage email to answer that.
Is it?
We don't offer them. They're extremely expensive. They're very labor involved. And then they come back again, and then come back again, and then I give them the price, and it's Jesus, that's more than my house cost.
Yeah, people get kind of pissed.
That's the car
about that.
before he started on it. But now that is a Catalina. That is not a 2+2. So where are we at, Josh?
Well, we've got. What do we got going on now?
We got one left.
Okay, well,
we've got
Impala.
another one. Well, we touched on the Impala. We embraced the Survivor kind of builds, and we finally got you.
That was the first car I owned, and I also
pile some miles on
I
something.
found that at the same car event that I bought the Corvette at. And there's a guy sitting there with this Impala. I bought a new monocle blue 63 Impala, and there's this car that's restored 8 years prior by a fellow that I admire a lot, a local guy that did the paint job. It was a great car. I saw pictures of it stripped. I knew it was a rust-free car. And anyhow, I bought it and painted top was white. I had it painted blue by the same guy, brought it down here. Next thing you know, you guys in 4 hours, we pulled the chassis out from underneath it, and I took the chassis back with me, and the rest is history. But that was a fun car to own and drive, and took it on a road tour. I'll never forget the road tour from Atlanta to Key West, and trying to keep up with you guys is just unbelievable.
It's a fast pace.
Holy God, 50, 55 mile an hour speed limits on back roads during 90 miles an hour.
Oh, come on.
These are high performance automobiles.
You know what's really fun? And never get a ticket. And I'll have to say that road tour. Now, for those that don't know it, Roadster Shop had 7 cars in there.
Yeah.
7 cars. Some of them not that freshly.
Not that recent. I mean, you're talking about very fresh
call
builds.
it when you take all the bugs out of it?
Not shook down.
It's crossing your fingers.
Yeah, you're crossing.
Yeah.
Anyway,
That's a good way of looking
crossing
at
your
it.
fingers. So I decided to go down there and with this group, and 7 cars driving 60, 70, 80, 90 miles an hour all day long through I don't know how many states. And I think the only thing that happened was one car threw a belt off a supercharger, and it wasn't the car you built. But you had your chassis under it.
Yeah.
It was the car from out east,
Which we
the lobster trap guy.
which we helped to find to shag, because that's the kind of service you get.
What's his name again? The lobster trap guy.
Dave Delancey.
Dave Delancey.
Which isn't, those fucking
Delancey.
damn serpentine drive issue.
I still have my lobster shirt.
Pulley it up too, making a lot of power and stuff.
Yeah.
Chris Surse builds a nice car.
Yeah. That was a nice
that was
car.
a fresh car too, and he
fresh.
piled them. And Dave wasn't taking it easy on that either. I mean, punishing that car for like 2,000 miles. That thing ripped.
I always tell everybody when I talk about the Roadster Shop, blowing your horn again, but I always say that form and function are equal at the Roadster Shop. It has to look really good, but it also has to run really good. And you've been able to pull that off. And I'm sure there's cars that are built that look beautiful and they're in the trailer all the time. And even that Pontiac, I now have 1,800 miles on that.
Yeah.
I drive it to shows. I drive, and everywhere you go in this Phoenix, Scottsdale area is 30, 40 miles. And you get out there, you're afraid as hell going down the freeway. Somebody's going to throw a rock and hit you or something. But I drive it everywhere. I mean, so.
Yeah, it's just paint. It can be fixed. Just keep it like a two-stage. Don't do a three-stage. No candies. No.
Yeah.
And then you can fix it. You can touch it up. You can blend it.
But as Josh is showing people the picture, it was a pretty neat car. It had the right wheel tire combination, the right stance, the right color.
Good color combo with the wheel and the
just
interior.
Color. Yep. It was a nice automobile.
That was the same road tour where
the first you took your truck that you drive.
That was
on it.
Kyle came. That was when we saw 130 miles an hour in the Legend truck.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was Kyle.
So we never told this story.
We haven't told that story.
So my brother-in-law.
That's your brother-in-law,
Yeah, who's
Kyle, yeah.
awesome, dude. He pretty much sets the pace for the chassis shop, runs the laser table, and awesome guy. He flies out and jumps in. I'm driving the Legend truck, so him and I are ripping. So I let him drive, and we were in South Carolina or something. It's like
Mexico, I think.
By way of Mexico.
Southwest Carolina, I think it was.
Right.
Southeast.
And we're rolling down this 2-lane, just straight strip. And out of nowhere comes some guy in like a hopped up square body truck. It was all cammed out. And this guy just comes ripping by us. You know, I probably would have let it go.
Kyle being the unit that he is.
Kyle's not letting that go. Well, the guy we had the whole row. We were kind of at the back of the pack. So there must have been 10 cars or something.
He goes past all of us.
So if you can imagine 10 cars spaced out, so that's, probably 30 car lengths.
On a double yellow.
So to pass the car in the front, you can imagine when your foot's to the floor, past 30, 40 car lengths, you pick up a lot of speed at the end. And he's not getting out of it. And I'm sitting there and I'm kind of in the, square body, the dash hits you like here. If you hit something, you're
going out.
You're going out, huh?
So no, I'm not wearing a seatbelt, obviously, and I'm kind of sitting there and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to tell him no, and he just keeps his foot in it. And I look over, and it's like 130 miles an hour and still climbing and past us.
What did the other guy think that you were passing?
I think
he thought, what the
That was
hell?
like seeing a UFO, I think, for that guy.
What was that?
Because as far he's probably got the fastest damn truck, in the Carolinas.
Yeah.
Not today.
Yeah. It's always somebody faster.
Yeah.
But yeah, good hell of a road tour. Good car.
Fun time. So what comes after the Impala?
Well, and the Pontiac Impala we're doing a 60 El Camino that somehow I ended up with.
Yeah.
It was a Roadster. It was a Phil Gerber purchase, I think.
It was. I still can't believe you're taking the paint off.
Josh negotiated that deal too.
Did. Yeah.
Then it was sold and traded to a friend of mine that's another customer of the Roadster Shop. Thanks, Barry, for the referral.
Thank you, Barry.
Checks in the mail.
Steve's an awesome dude.
He is. He's a very talented man.
Incredibly talented.
Yeah, and knowledgeable. He's a great designer. I have a toy barn. We have garages next to each other. I don't think I can ever live up to his quality.
Yeah.
I'm not going to try. I'm too old. But he is a very knowledgeable man and well thought out everything. But anyhow, he's doing a couple vehicles with you. And where was I going with that?
With the El Camino. How you ended
up with the El Camino, and we're on the way back we came to the Roadster Shop for him to, I think, talk to you about his Diamond T or Buick, and I was down here for something else. And on the way home, he said, I think I'm going to sell the El Camino. I don't know I got too many cars, too many projects. By the time we got home, I had bought it for some dumb reason. No intention of buying it, no big dream that I was going to do this. And it just mushrooms. It just starts there. And
another 1 year only car.
It's a 1 year. Yeah, it's a 1 year only car. And it's a real oddball. I mean, they didn't make many of them. It's funny. You go through the parts catalog. What's the one that you can order stuff.
Dan Chuck. Or
J.C. Penney.
No, not J.C. Penney.
J.C.
Not
Whitney.
Not J.C. Whitney. They parts group. What was it?
OPG.
No, OPG.
Original
And
Parts Group.
original. There's one other. Anyhow, you look through and there's 58, and they skip 59 and 60 most of the time. And then you can buy any part, trim piece, grills, moldings, anything for a 61, 62, 63, 64.
Classic Industries.
Classic Industries. There you go. That's a catalog.
Thank you, Josh.
And everything is 60 is missing. It's just, I don't know. It must have been a bad year because
And 60 El Camino is even.
even worse.
Last
I
one
mean,
just
well, they
stumbled
made
across.
the 59 El Camino was pretty popular, and when the 60 came out, they didn't. I think they only made 12,000 of them. That's all the 2+2s were made were 12,000 in 65. That's not a lot of cars.
If you can't find it in the Classic Industries, though, I bet you try the J.C. Penney one. They probably.
J.C. Penney.
I think they're going out of business, dude. They're not doing real well.
So
Yeah.
you said something. Too bad I took the paint off.
Yeah. That was the
You know?
best patina, I think. Like top 5 best patinas.
Phil,
It's pretty damn good.
no, but you just don't know where to stop. You really don't.
At the paint. You leave that on and you do everything underneath.
How much?
I think Phil knows where to stop.
How much did that floor end up costing me? Do you have any idea?
You'd know better than I would. I mean, I just made sure it got done right.
It's a very nice, solid 63-year-old car.
Yeah, it was a very clean car.
There's no end.
He's a craftsman on the car build side, and I'm a craftsman on the invoicing side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just yesterday morning, Sunday morning, I was back at home and went out to the garage in West Salem. I was replacing the rubbers and the seals on the vent wings and vent assemblies.
That's where you stop.
I had to take a hammer and screwdriver and break the rubber seal out around the vent wings. It was that hard. It came out in pieces 1 inch.
Window will never go up again.
Yep.
The door will never shut.
You never take
No,
those
I'm
out.
talking about the vent window closed. There was no way it was ever going to seal. It was cracked. It was hard. I mean, where do you start and where do you stop with these Survivor cars?
Well, that's the beauty of the Survivor. You stop right there with the paint and the vent window.
And you
Vent window
leave
is
the vent
exactly.
windows-
You don't touch that fucking vent window.
You leave the vent windows leak.
Because that's like a Ouija board. You don't know how the fuck it works. It just,
Well.
there's some, you know what I mean? It's somehow, like you start taking that thing apart, you don't know how, I mean,
Yeah, I'm with you.
I don't know
I
how
think
the
you
hell.
got to get Chad involved.
Exactly.
Chad
We're
is
gonna
the
go back.
master at
Why?
Chad
the
was
vent
the
window guy.
master at vent windows.
Was he?
Right.
Yeah. Ship him down to Texas. Call Chad up. Say, I need some help on these vent
No,
windows.
I got them all apart. I cleaned it all up and I, painted things and I put new rubbers in them and put new smoked glass in it. I get involved in some of this stuff, I'm not totally helpless.
No, you're absolutely not. I mean, that's,
You have to say that I'm probably, without a doubt, probably one of your most engaged customers.
I would say so. I mean, I would think.
I live this every project.
And you brought you and Steve together could probably your skills, your project management, and Steve's got a tremendous amount of skills within a variety of different areas. You guys could probably just have a hot rod shop and not need the.
but
We'll build you chassis.
I know how old I am, and he's getting there, and we're not going to do that. But it's, I don't know, it's fun.
It's a sickness.
But a lot of those cars. I mean, you're 4 hours away, but I'm down here when you're building a car for me. I'm here at least once a month, maybe. You have some of these fat cats that just send you a check, and they never see the car until the day you present it to them, and they don't know what they're getting.
There's so many less times to gripe about the invoice, though.
I don't know. The bills are just enough to scare the hell out of me every time I get them. So I don't know.
Just pay them and don't look at them. It makes it so much easier.
I'm really old school when it comes to that. I still can't get over sometimes what this stuff costs. But everything costs so much. Everything. I just finished remodeling our house in Arizona, and it's
Whose idea was it to machine a center console from a single piece of aluminum?
whose idea was that? It
I think that was yours.
Wasn't mine.
Yeah, I don't.
No,
was
no,
that mine?
No, that's a Jeremy. That's a Jeremy.
That's not how it was presented to me.
Yeah, I don't know if that
No.
was.
I think he came to me and said, "We're going to machine that." Barry wants to do it. I try to talk about it.
No. I want.
Yeah, so it's his idea. He's just blaming it on Barry.
I wanted
That
a center.
seems like it's.
I wanted a
it's
council,
pretty
but
much-
I'm. Is he leaving?
It seems like it's not hard to figure out. It looks like you're stumbling on this, but it seems very clear.
I was walking it back as it was coming out. It's just starting to make sense.
Let's just move on from that. We're talking about the El Camino here. We're not
El Camino.
Catalina. The Catalina's
No
finished.
center console in that.
Right. Yeah, that's zero.
I bought one.
There's no back seat, no trunk.
That's right. I thought this was going to be a cheap build because it doesn't have much of an interior, doesn't have a trunk. You know, it's getting right up there.
You get twice the paint though, because you got to do it on the
No,
inside. of the bed.
I got a wonderful guy back in Wisconsin. You guys don't have time to paint things. That's the big bottleneck here. I mean, I could put another aught on the cost of the car with a paint job here.
Yeah. Paint gets expensive. It's incredibly labor intensive.
Yeah. I was listening to one of the podcasts, and somebody said, "Well, that's a 6-digit paint job." Maybe that was Jonathan Ward or something. I don't know. Somebody I was listening to. There's paint jobs that could. It's always amazing at these car shows. Like, what did that car cost? You got 50 in that? You got 75 in it? You know,
Briefcases.
Well, there's something to be said for doing it that way, because I think this has come up in the past that a lot of times some of these paint jobs and some of the level that you take some of these cars to is maybe not for the customer, but for your peers.
Yeah,
You know?
right.
So for people to understand that you don't want the original paint. Some guys you want a decent paint job. You want shiny paint, but it doesn't need to be a showpiece. It doesn't, you're not looking at win the Mother Shine Award. You just want it shiny blue.
Yeah.
Which is fine
with the car.
Yeah.
We need to. Do we need to like make a?
Survivor paint or something.
Well, you got to like make the push that like okay paint is okay.
That
Is that-
was a beautiful car to do a Survivor car.
It really was.
I mean, that car had been restored 6-7 years before I bought it. It had the original chassis, but been painted and cleaned up. The paint job on it was beautiful. The man that's painting the El Camino painted that car. We never touched the paint. It had a little scratches in the moldings. Sure. The bumpers had a little scratch. Little things that you could park it someplace and not worry about it. But 99% of the people saw that car. They thought, oh, God, it's just gorgeous.
Yeah.
And you drive down the road, thumbs up, and what year is that? You know, cool car, you know. But
it's a lot of the problem with getting into painting a car, because you take everything apart and then you're going to make the trim fit better, and then you're going to shave the antenna holes, and then you're going to tuck the bumpers, and you're going to get rid of the bumper bolts, and then you're going to do this, and then you're going to do that, and it just
we don't
keeps
have to do
going.
all of that. We're not doing that with the El Camino. We're basically
that's where most of these things kind of escalate from. Is like you've done these 47 things, you're not going to
I know.
do number 48. It's $1,000 to do it now, or $20,000 to go back and do it later.
Well, it depends on what you're going to do with the car. I mean, this car was never meant to be a show car. That El Camino is not going to be meant to be a show car, although I would guess it. That car ended up on the cover of Muscle Machines magazine somehow, cover car, and I wouldn't doubt that the El Camino will.
The El Camino is going to be cool.
It's a neat car. It's an oddball car. It's going to have the right look, the right stance, the right pedigree. You know, it's going to RS built, you know.
Man, we're 50-50 on that one.
No, you're not. No, I'm just taking care of the paint. And the
Did we pick a color on that? I saw a couple colors.
We did.
Yeah, we came full circle on it. We're
That's
back
right.
to the.
we looked at Bentley colors. We looked at a Cadillac color, and after we sprayed it, we're painting the original color. And
That's an important lesson for like shops to learn that you gotta understand the customers, and you gotta know when to let them take the reins and when to like. Barry's you got great taste, you know.
Thank you. I didn't know that I do, but
well, and you shouldn't be afraid. I mean, I had no problem telling you that you brought me that Bentley color. I said, if you're doing it for your wife, that's for a chick. That's a chick's car.
Yeah.
That's purple. Do not paint it that color.
well, you go to car shows, especially cars that have been around for 8-10 years, and the first thing, back quite a few years ago, there were all these gaudy colors. You say, oh, your wife said you could build the car, but she got to pick the color.
It matched her nail polish.
Yeah, that's right.
But you said we need to paint it the original color, and I don't think I agreed with you at first. And I said we should try this caddy color, we should try this vet color, and you brought the spray out, and you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. That original color is going to look cool. It fills the buffer in between that, so it's good for me. It's bad for him because he has to deal with my my
He's the bearer of
frustration
bad
gets
news. You're bad
Yeah, I
news.
lay it out
I'm the
direct to
filter.
him because I'm like, you know, very nice guy, right?
Yeah.
Well, it was a really nice car when it was
a
done,
nice
but
car.
we had to
Hopefully he's not listening.
airbrush running Stallions in true fire down the louvered hood sides. So you can imagine my response, and my response goes direct to Phil because I'm not talking to the customer, so there's no filter
F
on
out
that.
This car.
Yeah.
I built this beautiful
I
car.
don't-
Now
I
you're
don't know
screwing
that
it up.
it's the best fit for this car with like the classic style that we're going to. And nope, that was met with resistance. So then we ended up compromise and built a second set of hood sides so we can real fire horses running through one set and take those on and off.
Take it to car shows and put your other hood sets on, so you can take credit for it. Huh?
We had Stallions.
Yeah.
But I mean, today, didn't Mike LaValle paint those?
He did.
Oh
So what
God,
was
that's
the deal? The
that's a big
Stallions-
name.
The Stallions were on fire,
They were running and the fire was coming off of them. You know,
so they were running fast.
when Stallions run, there's fire that comes
I didn't know. So that's,
You had a big
I
name
think I
painter
would've had-
painting this. That was not cheap.
I would have had more. I would have had more questions about the idea, not whether
That's
it was-
true. I never really thought. I'd maybe gone with smoke instead of fire.
Yeah,
But
I think my favorite was we did one car and we were arguing back and forth on the color for a while. And we kept saying it's not the right color for the car. It's not the right color for the car. He comes in after we painted it. Yeah, it's a good looking red. I'm like, it's orange. So yeah, I'm colorblind. It doesn't matter anyways. So yeah, that one took some tongue biting.
Well, it's
it was the shade of gray that he wanted.
yeah.
Well, Barry, it's been awesome.
It's been awesome. Huh?
We come to some of the standard questions that we ask all guests.
Yeah.
So,
Fire away.
best piece of advice that you've ever received?
Oh, I think my dad always used to say, "Get up and go to work every day. Work hard, and the money will follow." And I kind of lived by that. I mean, all the times I was in business, I never dwelled on profit. Not that I didn't want to make profit, but I
it's
just
a byproduct.
the
of
philosophy
working
of
hard.
getting up and putting in a good day's work and accomplishing something every day, and do the best you can do, and that's I don't know. That's probably the best advice. I don't.
Now, what about?
I've got.
Go ahead.
Oh, after you, please.
Yeah.
What about advice you would give? Because I mean, I admire your generation and the generations.
It is a different
the
generation.
generations,
the second
the
oldest guy you
generations
had
that
here.
that are following us.
Yeah.
They could probably use the advice more than our generation. But what's the best advice you'd give to somebody in business?
I think it's the same thing. Get up and work hard every day. Do your best. Some people are fortunate to have more talent than others. Some
You think hard work supersedes talent sometimes?
sometime. Yeah. No, I there's definitely some talented people. I mean, there again, I'm listening to some of your podcasts, and it's been interesting. Look, Gail Banks, I couldnn't get over on this. This guy's a brilliant man. You know, Ward, even though he's a little out there, I guess. I know that was very interesting. The one I really liked was the Outlaw guy, Outlaw, the Porsches.
Oh, Rod
yeah,
Emery.
Rod Emery.
Yeah, he's a cool guy.
I'm a Porsche guy. You have to understand that. I've had 4 GT3s. I've restored a couple old 356s. I mean, they're neat cars. My gamut of car interest is all over the map. It isn't just hot rods. I mean, I've owned a few Ferraris. I bought a Ferrari brand new when I was 30 years old, 308 GTS. I mean, and I couldn't afford it then, but I had it.
You had it.
And what's really strange, even stranger than that, the same year I bought a new Excalibur.
That's weird.
That's,
I don't know. I'd be putting that out there.
Direct opposites. I know that.
We can edit. They can edit all the stuff out.
What exotic animals did you also have at the same time?
I didn't have any exotic animals. I think at the time my wife had a Pinto she was driving.
Because you
Pinto
spent all
wagon.
the money on the Excalibur.
Well,
I
but
see you in an Excalibur
I'm
with one
honest,
of the
I-
lions from Siegfried and Roy, the white one.
Like
I
a
couldn't
mini
have-
giraffe.
I couldn't afford these cars at the time, but I had them.
What did an Excalibur go for?
I paid-
Corvette plus whatever was on top of that.
Well, the 308 GTS I paid $40,000 for. That's what the sticker price was. I didn't buy it from a Ferrari dealer. I bought it from Joe Marchetti. You ever hear that name?
No.
You ever hear the Como Inn in Chicago?
Yes.
The restaurant, Italian restaurant. Joe Marchetti owned that. He's deceased now.
Yeah.
This was Lake Forest Sports Cars was in business, but if you wanted to buy a Ferrari, you didn't buy it in Minneapolis. There was no Ferrari dealer other than Chicago. Joe Marchetti was a restaurateur, but he could get more new Ferraris than the Ferrari dealer could. And I bought a red tan interior 308 GTS. The Excalibur, of course, in 1978, when I bought that car new, they were the 5th largest manufacturer of cars in the United States.
Really?
Yeah. Ford, General Motors, Ford, General Motors, Chrysler Corporation, AMC, and Excalibur.
But that was built on the General Motors platform, right?
It was a tube. You'd appreciate the construction of this. This thing was made out of 2 by 3 by quarter, I think.
Okay.
Square rectangular tubing.
Weren't they like 6,000 pounds?
It was terribly. The frame had to weigh a ton, but it had. At the time, it had a Corvette independent rear. They bought all the components from General Motors. It had 60s vintage C3 type rear suspension, front suspension. They bought the motors from General Motors. There were 454s and big block Chevys. It had a big block Chevy and an automatic transmission. It was a well-built car. Disc brakes all around. They're just real boogie wagon, you know. The thing that ruined the car the most is they put Volkswagen taillights and parking lights in it.
So that was the thing that.
But it was.
So that was the thing that killed it.
It was a neat. Well,
taillights.
No, they were in business and made some money and made a lot of. Then they had to try to keep adapting to the new regulations, and they made a 4-door sedan. And it's just I'm all over the map in this stuff.
Yeah, you're all over the map. I've got 2 visions right now. I've got 308 GTS, 30-year-old Barry with a mustache and the short shorts, reliving the Tom Selleck
the
days.
magic wand.
And then
this was before Magnum PI. Magnum PI was not out then. Okay.
He still got the shirt.
Then I turned 40 and I got into airplanes.
model airplanes or real airplanes?
Real airplanes. Yeah, real airplanes. In fact, I think the first couple times I came to see you, I flew.
Yeah, I remember you.
I flew down here. Yeah.
I'll never. I mean, your advice was always just never buy a fucking plane. It was always. I'll always remember you just always saying that.
If it flies, floats, or you know what.
And that's the reason that's the reason I've never bought a plane.
I've wanted because we were just looking at that huge jet, and you're like, Barry said.
Well, I came that close to buying a small jet, but it was a great experience in my life. And like I told you at the very beginning, I'm a really blessed guy. I spent 20 years flying a personal airplane, and we had a home in Colorado, and we'd fly out there with the kids, and we'd land, had a Suburban at the airport, get in and drive over to our house. I mean, it was really, I bought a single engine plane when I was 40 years old. I got my pilot's license. I bought an airplane 3 months after I got my license. Then I got my instrument rating in that airplane. Then I bought a Beach Bonanza, which is a pretty nice single engine plane. Flew that. Then I got my multi-engine rating. Flew that for 500 hours, a piston twin. And then ultimately ended up buying a King Air with a good friend of mine, a partnership, but I flew the plane myself. So I've got a couple thousand hours in a King Air. That's a turbine power. Go to flight safety twice a year to keep you so that your insurance company would love you enough to insure you.
What was more exhilarating, flying that first time after your license or driving that Excalibur around?
Oh, the Excalibur was fun. It was a neat car. But the flying thing, I also lived on the water and had boats and stuff. And airplanes are in that same category. The happiest day of your life is the day you buy the boat and the day you sell it. I can say the same thing about living on the water. I lived on the the Black River, which runs into the Mississippi. And happiest day of my life is the day I bought that house, and then I built another house there, and then I sold it. And it's just the flying thing is there's a tremendous amount of stress. I mean, I put my family in an airplane that I'm flying, and I could kill them real easily with one mistake. And if you start statistically looking at small private airplane accidents, 90% of the time it's pilot error. You screw up once, you're dead. And so I think and of course I developed this hearing issue I talked about earlier where I had some dizziness and vertigo problems. So I basically at 61, 62 years old, I had to stop it. I sold the business, and you got to have a business to write an airplane off, and you can't just own this privately. You got to have some way that the government particips with you in some form or another.
Absorb a little bit of that.
Yeah, you got to expense a few things, and anyhow, it's over. But it was a great experience. Just like that's when I got out of that, I got into cars again. And there was a whole gap in between there, other than when I bought the Excalibur at 30. From 30 to, there was a time in there all I did was change diapers and have kids,
Well, what did you do when you had the Ferrari? Like, you go out to get the Ferrari. Yeah. What was the thought process like?
I just thought it was cool.
I don't get.
I wanted.
I mean, I know why at 30 years old, I know exactly why I would want.
I'm sure it's probably the exact same reason that he would want.
Well, when I turned 40, my wife and I we got married when I was 37 years old, or remarried. We flew to Germany and picked up a new 911 at the factory, and so I tried all
Is
the time.
Is that a carry-on or a check? How did you get that thing back from?
They're pretty small.
You ship it back, and I picked it up in South Carolina. You get European delivery, and you could pick it up at the port of entry, or they'd deliver it to the dealer you ordered from. But I actually flew out there with my son, that's now 50 years old, and we drove it back from South Carolina. That was a great car.
That's cool.
I've tried over the years to have. It's like you buying the Roadster when I turned 60. I try to do memorable things on major birthdays. So, anyway.
I got one piece of advice that I actually got from you that stuck with us for quite some time. You probably remember it as well. Is it your 6 Ps?
Yeah, that was another one of my sayings. You'd walk in my office, and like where you got the RS, I had a picture frame about 4 feet long and 18 inches high, and it had 7 capital P's framed in a picture frame. P, 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 P. And you guys live by this. Both of you. Him especially, because he's the builder guy. It stands for proper prior planning prevents piss poor performance. You plan out things better than anybody I know. And I mean that in the car industry. I mean, there's some very talented people out there, and I don't know everybody, but that's what I've been most impressed about this place. Nothing is, you watch all these goofy shows, and you see all the drama and the mistakes and that are going on. Me as an amateur, I'm looking at it and saying, I know better than that. What the hell are you doing that for? They had and Dave Kindig's a wonderful guy. In fact, I got a picture on my wife finally met him. She always used to tease me. I watch Bitchin' Rides on TV. She says, you watching Bitchin' Carburetors again? So I introduced her at Bear Jackson to him this year, and I said, she calls your show Bitchin' Carburetor. So we got a picture, and he takes a selfie with her. And anyway, but I'm watching Kindig's show, and they're doing one of these Mercury racing motors. And it's always a big drama about firing engines. Yeah, fire. So they're sitting there. They had a key in that Nova where on the Pontiac, you've got a switch and a momentary start button.
Yep.
So here these guys are. They're holding the key over, and it's cranking and cranking and cranking, and it's not firing. And I'm saying to myself, if nothing else, if the key is taking the place of the button, they should just hit the key once. Instead, they're just cranking the motor. It's all just drama.
Yeah. They plug a lot of that in for TV.
I know they do. Yeah, but some of it is just dumb stuff.
Yeah, there's some of those TVs we won't.
I watch a lot of them, and it's entertaining to me. I mean, I watch Iron Resurrection.
Yeah.
I watch Texas Metal a lot. Why? Because this guy's a fabricator. I can relate to everything he's doing. He uses the same approach to everything that I did. It's called the SCB approach to engineering. You don't know what that means either.
Well, I know. What would you say? Metal's thicker than brains?
Steel is cheaper than brains.
Okay.
You do it the other way. You use the brains.
Yeah, we.
I'm not
fair
trying to
assessment
offend
between the
this
two.
guy, but if 1/8 metal is going to fix what they're doing on one of their builds, they use a 1/4 inch. You know, it's no regard to weight. I mean,
Yeah, we hired the brains. We've got some
you've
really,
done a great job
got
of
some
that.
really
Yeah.
intelligent guys up in the engineering
Yes,
team.
there is,
So-
and it never fails to amaze me. The designs and the processes that you're going through. It's just, some of it I think maybe gets expensive when you have a guy design a floor tunnel for an El Camino or something, and you got this digital drawing and they're flame cutting it and all. You know, that's probably expensive, but
Or you could have paid to do it
probably
4 times.
It probably costs no more than the guy going out there and little by little cutting and fitting and cutting and fitting and cutting and fitting. And, you know, yeah, it's amazing. I have been so impressed with this place over the years. And I know Phil Smunt calls me your senior brand ambassador. I think that's a good
That
name.
is good. We
It's
should get
really
big-
good. Did
That's
he take
worthy
that
of
up on his own?
He did. That's worthy of a business card.
Yeah, I should have a business card. I'll tell you a quick little story. I got through. In fact, I have a picture of Phil and Neil at Paul Atkins' shop and myself. And when I was there and we visited that place with the 32 Roadster, I met a guy named Larry Matthews. He happens to be a boyhood friend of Rick Hendricks.
Yeah.
Best friends. Every place Rick goes, Larry's always with him. And, last year when Rick bought the $3 million C8, Larry had us up in the skybox. Where I was standing right outside and he was bidding that. But where was I going with this now? I get sidetracked. What were we just talking about? Come on now, help me out.
I'm drunk. I don't know.
You're talking about his 56.
No, he.
Oh, you're
he's
at Paul Atkins. You're
Oh,
out
Paul.
there. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I met Larry, but I was leading into this with
Hiring guys, technology.
You have to edit
people.
that
Yeah,
out.
we get it.
I don't know. I just there was a story involved with this, and I lost track of the. I don't have Alzheimer's yet.
No, I get it.
My wife actually thinks I remember things she can't remember, but it'll come to me shortly. But it was a good story, whatever it was.
No, you don't worry about it because nobody will ever even know that this
That
part exists.
that happened.
Yeah, they'll edit all this out.
Yeah, edit all of it out. Maybe you'll never play this.
No, I think he'll play it. We have to play them.
Oh, you do?
Yeah,
Why do you have to play 'em?
Well, if you don't, we'll run out of stuff to play every week.
All right. Okay. What's the next question for everybody?
Next question is, what do you get in your pockets?
The pocket dump thing. I don't
You don't
have
really get it.
I
You
don't
understand it.
Well, I have. Where is it? I have a dad wallet.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah,
Of course.
and I used to have a really nice money clip.
Now
See
you've
what I
got-
have now?
You've got the Matt Saxton
Yeah.
money clip.
I lost my money clip. It was gold. It had a silver dollar in it. It was silver and it broke. I put it in the drawer, and since then you can see the paint's worn off of that blue Office Depot clip. That's it.
RS Blue.
The whole knife thing, I don't get it. I don't open enough boxes to appreciate what you guys in
Yeah,
this
it's
knife
just
thing's all. I
very
know it's
handy.
a sponsor.
You don't go to the seedy areas that we go to.
Well,
You
maybe,
ever
yeah, I
find
don't hang out
yourself
the
in a
same
dark
bars they
alley.
do.
You got to grab a knife.
I own a pocket knife, and I've showed you guys pictures of it once.
You've got a William Henry, don't you?
No, I've got a Dr. T, and you've never heard of it. That's the only. I wouldn't even. It's too
Like
nice.
Mr. T?
It's Mr. T's brother.
Dr. T.
Dr. T.
Now, this is an
went to
orthodontist
college.
friend of mine that lives in same town Steve lives in, Winona, Minnesota. He hand makes his knives in his basement. I mean, orthodontists and dentists are sometimes very talented people. I mean, we have a friend of ours that's a dentist that actually did sculptures. I mean, sculpturing teeth, they do it out of gold, and
Sure.
he'd do bronze sculptures. When they tore the Corvette plant down in St. Louis, they went into the paint booths and chiseled off 2 inches thick of paint. And this stuff is harder than a rock, you know. And he bought some of it, and the sides are Corvette Fordite. And
That's cool.
it's got every color of the rainbow. Every Corvette that was ever painted. It's got yellow. It's got red. It's got blue. It's just beautiful. And how you slice it and it's polished and finished. It's just for a car guy, much less a Corvette guy. I mean, I just bought one yesterday. Actually, this morning, a new 2023. I'm still waiting for the Z06, but I traded in the 2021 convertible. So that'll be the 8th or 9th Corvette since 2014.
I think me and Jer are still both humbled that you're going to give us the Z06.
Yeah, that was amazing.
I can't wait for the Z06.
After the 9th car, for you to do that is like a thank you gift.
You want to?
That's pretty awesome.
Know what else I'm getting, Josh?
It's pretty awesome.
It's got a serial number already.
Oh,
A Raptor R. I will have it in a month. When I come back in May, I'm going to drive it down here.
Park it next to Josh's regular Raptor.
Yeah. Well, I got a regular Raptor too. One of you guys can buy that, but that's
So you've got a Raptor R too. Yours is a regular Raptor.
R's for regular. Could be for rat. No. So anyway, it's kind of a neat knife, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't think of opening a box with that. That's what you buy utility knives for. But you guys must just open a lot of boxes or something. You're always flipping that thing out.
like an
Either that or
adult
you're going
fidget-
to bad places.
It's an adult fidget spinner.
Yeah, it is.
An adult fidget spinner. Just all day long, just sitting there flipping it.
we can't afford a 308 GTS. So
I don't
we
have that
play
either.
with knives.
I don't have, but now you had one on one of the shows that actually is switchblade like. I mean, is that legal? I always thought that knives that pop out like
Let's
that.
not be talking about what's.
That's not legal, is it?
You
Is
have to have a
Yeah,
Void card.
You know
right?
a guy.
Yeah, I've got one too. Josh actually got this for me
Oh, look at this.
because he's such a sweetheart. But
Phil, you
that's-
got one of those? You have to open yours manually.
But for somebody,
do, but
for somebody that's into mechanical things, I mean, that's I think what I enjoy about them. It's you got all sorts of cool fasteners. They're
It
a
is.
mixture of billet stuff. Always neat materials, and
I don't. When you're
can appreciate
fat
the
and old like me, you
craftsmanship.
don't want your pockets bulging out. When you guys are thin and small and athletic, and
I think he's talking
that's all
about me.
It's all excess baggage. Just talking about you. I'm looking at Jeremy. I don't know about the two of you.
I mean, a gymnast body's got room for knives.
Well, I stopped going to the gym quite a while ago, so it's just kind of whatever I had is fading away. That's it.
Car movie. We got car movie.
we gotta do car
We
movie.
got a couple more in there.
All right.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry.
You have to understand how old I am. I can't even remember some of the good movies. I'll tell you right now. I think my favorite car movie is Ford versus Ferrari, because I think it was so well done. I can really relate to it. I remember watching this stuff on TV in the 60s.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Now, yeah, Bullet and some of these other shows.
Would that be on Worldwide Sports or whatever? Was that
I don't
what that
know.
was?
I remember some of those clips. I mean, I'm 20 years old, 21 years old. I remember vaguely remember it, but it just brought back a lot of memories. And when I got done watching that movie, I went home and I just started reading more about the whole process and the whole Peter Brock thing. You know who he is?
No,
Yeah, Jeremy, you're shaking.
no, I don't.
He's a phenomenal designer. He designed the Cobra Coupe. I mean, the original ones that he designed that were built, not the Cobra open sports car,
Sure.
but the Coupe. And the aerodynamic things, he was also very involved in the design of the Stingray. Google him. Peter Brock.
I will Google.
He's 80-some years old. He's been interviewed on TV a few times, but when you read about the talent this guy had, and he really was not, I don't think he was trained as a designer, maybe in art school or something, but that car, they only made it for a short period of time and raced it because you got to research a little bit, but
I'll check
it's
him out.
the Cobra. It's the coupe with the funny back end, and the back end kind of comes in on the back. Aerodynamically, he was way ahead of his time, and they had it in the movie some. But
I mean, to be honest, looking at that car, I don't know that I would have Googled the designer of it. I know the car,
yeah,
but I don't
No,
think I
but
would have
the
been
car is
interested in who designed it.
well, it's not the most attractive car in the world. It's really not.
Right.
But race-wise and
was fast.
aerodynamically, it was way ahead of its time. I mean, yeah. So, anyway.
It's Ford versus Ferrari,
Ferrari,
favorite
yeah.
car movie. I think that would probably be number 2 or number 3.
It's got to be up there at
all
the top.
Yeah.
I mean, I could watch it 3-4 times probably.
It's probably the best produced car movie out there. I mean, it's most current. So
good.
Well, Fast and the Furious 14 or 15, I think, is coming out soon. So that might be.
I was just about to say, that one that they did it justice and didn't ruin the car hobby in the process of doing it.
Yeah, they did a hell of a job with it.
Yeah.
Phenomenal movie. Well, what do we get? First car, too, because a lot of these cars have come from, cars that you've built have come from childhood experiences or something. What was the first car that was it the 57? I mean, we kind of touched on that.
Yeah, 57 Chevy, but yeah.
And we haven't recreated
the first
it
hot
yet,
rod was the 36 Chevy pickup that we probably didn't talk about. Followed by a T-bucket Roadster with a little 289 Ford and a 4-speed.
That one's probably best left as a memory.
The T-bucket?
I don't necessarily need to recreate.
Hey, I've gone through, T-buckets, 57 Chevys, Ferraris, Porsches.
It's pretty diverse.
Big car, small car, big car.
What's the scariest speed-wise car you've ever had or driven?
T-bucket has to be.
Scariest, yeah. Well, no. The 36 Chevy pickup that had the original straight front axle and drum brakes under the front. Yeah. No, that was leaf springs and
it's all over the place.
I put a 289 Pontiac engine in it with a 4-speed behind it and some kind of vintage rear end under it. But when you'd shift quick, it would go like that. It would torque. The left front wheel would kind of hop.
Well, pre-runner style.
Was it?
I mean, this was a weapon.
Was that on split wishbones or was it just a traditional wishbone?
The old chassis and with a big Pontiac engine in it, but I had slicks on it for a while.
It just probably went wherever the hell it wanted to go when you stepped on the gas.
Yeah, I remember one time I took it from my dad's car lot and went down the street and was trying to run it through the gears, and I broke the case on the 4-speed transmission. I just split it wide open.
Just banging gears?
Yeah, just dumb stuff. Had to fix it myself. I couldn't take it to a shop and have somebody else do it, So
I'd say you don't see enough of this splitting the transmissions wide open, and then I'm looking at your shirt at the same time.
What's that? What does it say?
Didn't Vinny
split a
explode a
God, I thought maybe you'd give me a nice Roadster Shop shirt to wear during this interview. I had to stick to my Tommy Bahama flowers.
Yeah, he blew an 8L9 to your 10L.
Exploded?
Yeah, just
like
case cracked right in half.
Yeah.
It's coming through the floor?
No.
No, it dropped out the bottom.
Yeah. 59 Cadillac.
Oh, I remember that.
Last question.
Yeah.
If you had to go back in time at any point in time, what time would it be and what would you tell yourself?
I don't want to go back. I have to honestly say it's been a great life. I've had my share of successes and a few failures along the way. I'm a very lucky guy. Just the biggest thing is at my age, not that I keep talking about being so old, I'm fairly healthy. I had a stress echocardiogram a month or two ago, which I don't want. The one thing I don't want to have in this world is a stroke. I'm going to try to do anything I can to keep. I don't know that I'd change anything. I made some mistakes along the way. Like I said, I got married too young. Probably had children too young, but they're great kids. Great family life. Very satisfying business career. Fun hobbies. I don't know what.
There's no right or wrong answer.
There isn't a right or wrong answer,
No.
And it's great relationships with people. I never like to argue with people. I kind of try to patch even if I have a disagreement. I know during the time we were doing C1RS, I hate to bring stuff up like this, but there were times when and it isn't that I felt you guys were in any way taking advantage of me. It just kind of got out of hand. And some people probably would have gotten really mad about that. I remember writing your father a letter and talking to him, and just I did not want this relationship to end and to end on a bad note. That's just kind of how I am. And I'm glad I handled it that way because it went on to become just bigger and better all the way. I care more about people and relationships than I do about, try to at least, material things. I don't know. I feel quite privileged to be part of this organization and family.
Well, likewise, we're
I've
privileged to have you be a part of it.
Of all your people you've had any guests, I've been to both of you gentlemen's weddings.
Yeah.
I know your kids' names. I was at your father's funeral. I've had the pleasure of dining with your parents a few times, and you. I think I know all of you pretty well, and like I said at the beginning, the last 15 years it's been a good part of my life being associated with the Gerber family, the Roadster Shop, the quality of things you produce.
That's been a hell of a relationship.
Yeah, and I hope it's not the last car, but it probably could be. I don't know.
I don't know.
There's one more in there somewhere.
I'm saving I think the Pantera.
Well, I know you keep throwing that by me, but I
never really push one on anybody, but I think the Pantera.
The way the stock market's going lately, I'm going to have to stop.
Yeah, there's that.
I always tell everybody I'm living on a fixed income, which I am.
So it's basically, it's Joe Biden's fault that the Pantera won't be built.
Yeah.
Is what we can say. Something you can blame on him.
You know, you got a long list of shit.
I put it at the top.
I'm actually running out of ideas. I don't know. I have no clue that we would ever think about doing this El Camino. It's something to keep me occupied. I'm a firm. I mean, as I said before, I'm 77 years old. There's a lot of people that don't think about this. I need something in my life all the time to think about.
Sure.
I finished remodeling a house where we live in Wisconsin. I spent a whole summer doing that. I just finished remodeling the house we have in Arizona, and I'm just engaged in it a lot. I don't do it all myself, but I do a lot. I do whatever I can do, and it's just keeping my mind working all the time. And now that I'm done with that, we'll flow into hopefully getting this car finished and planning it. And I can't do all the work anymore, but it's kind of like Steve. Steve's a great. He doesn't have enough hours in the day to do it all.
Yep.
But he will think. I better put this closer. He will think out every aspect of it and tell you how to do it.
Yep.
And he's just very engaged in it. And I think as people go old, I mean, I know so many people that they retire from a job at 65 or 62 and they go play golf. I mean,
do you think that's the key to staying sharp and staying energetic is to keep these projects and keep
it keeps your mind working. I mean,
because you've got more energy than most guys. I mean, probably more than me.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about that, but my wife was always telling me that you're like the Energizer Bunny. You just never stop moving. And I mean, I get up in the morning. I don't get up at 6, but I get up at 7, and I'm moving from the moment I get till the end of the day. It's just there's always something to do, and I don't know. Life has been good, and I wouldn't change much, Josh.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I hope to be your age and say the same thing.
Well, it's scary. I mean, I find myself talking about age all the time, but I mean, obviously, I'm not on the uphill slope anymore. I'm on the downhill slope, and you wonder how many more good years you're going to have, and you want to enjoy them as much as possible.
And this is something that me and Josh talk about a lot. You can see that's a concern of his.
Yeah, you're older than everybody else, Josh, aren't you? Are you not? You're 50 yet, or are you knocking on it?
Good grief, no.
Oh, you're over 50?
No.
Yeah, look at him.
Looks like it.
I'll be 45 this year, end of this year.
Well, then you got a ways to go yet. But
Just hasn't aged that gracefully.
I mean, I was out to dinner with some friends a couple nights ago, and the sister and brother-in-law of some good friends of ours, and I said, I think I got a child older than you. Yeah, and my son's 55 and he's 55. You know, it's just, man, I'm hanging around with people 55 and 60, though. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
I'm always the most senior guy for some reason. I just can't. The whiskey was good, by the way.
It was very good.
Yeah. What brand is that?
Eagle Rare.
Do I get to hang around and listen to your review?
Oh, yeah.
Huh?
Sometimes we forget to do those.
That's
one definitely worth doing because that's a great bottle.
Well, you took care of me and got me that Weller 12 There's a big bottle of it there, isn't it? Boy,
Yeah.
what's that baby worth?
No, we haven't opened it.
But
Because
I opened that the night that my son and daughter-in-law were at our house last Christmas to celebrate the event that's happening in May of my wife and I's first grandchild. Bjorn you've met Bjorn.
Yeah,
He's my only son that you've spent any time with.
Yeah, Bjorn's
Because you know why? He was allergic to horses, Phil.
Really?
He was allergic to them. He couldn't go to horse shows. Otherwise,
He got lucky.
He got very lucky. He was a lucky guy.
Yeah,
I got lucky because he had to stay home with me. I had to stay home. I couldn't go to a horse show if he was. So he ended up going. He was at Street Machine of the Year when we won with C1RS. He was at your wedding, not yours, but he was at your wedding with me.
Yeah, he's a hell of a kid.
He's a nice kid.
Man, no,
Just-
he's a grown. He was.
He's 20.
Little
28
boy when I first.
He's 28 years old and one sharp kid. He's a
Very sharp.
patent lawyer in Dallas now.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I won the lottery when it comes to kids. I really did. They're all smarter than I am.
That's great.
Yeah, I think your family won the lottery too. I don't know Josh's family, but
Yeah, they're pretty.
I think the
alright.
thing that most impressed me when I'm reminiscing too much probably, was your relationship with your dad.
Yep.
How he admired the two of you and wanted to work with you so much. I never felt that from my father. My father, because he was handicapped, he probably couldn't appreciate things quite as much. But I think he never wanted me to leave the business because I worked hard. He would lose his best employee. With you guys and your dad, it's always been an amazing thing for me to reminisce and look back on.
Yeah, it was hell of a good time.
Yeah,
for us.
I was talking to Brian, the truck driver, your truck driver, and I said, boy, it's a good thing Neil's not around because you wouldn't be driving this truck.
No.
Well, I got to tell you one quick story. Okay. So I took the blue Corvette with a friend of mine, and we drove to Bowling Green, Kentucky. There was an event at the museum. No, it wasn't Bowling Green. That was a different story. We went to Effingham. Was Mid-America. They have the Corvette Fest, they call it, in Effingham, Illinois. You ever hear of that?
Yep.
His name is Mike Yeager, the guy that puts it on. He maybe bought parts from them. Every year he has what's called Corvette Fest, and there's people come from all over. You ever been to Effingham?
I've been to Effingham, never been for that event.
It's south. Okay, so I take the car to Effingham, and we're displaying it, and they give away what's called the Chief's Choice Award. And there's one other story attached to this, but I'm digressing here a little bit. They line up all these Corvettes, and he goes kind of they're in rows, like maybe 20 Corvettes, 20 Corvettes, 20 Corvettes. And anybody that wants him to judge their car, they line him up there. And he walks at a very brisk pace along all these cars, trying to pick what he calls the Chief's Choice. I wish I had a video of this because my car was like third from the last car because he started down here, back and forth, back and forth. That Corvette was sitting there, and he got to that point, and there was an announcer that was with him. I can't think of his name now. They're walking together, and all of a sudden, it's like the brakes went on. He just stopped. He's walking by these other cars as fast, and all of a sudden he looks, he makes one loop around it, and goes on the rest of the way. And of course, that car ends up under the podium with a picture of him. And so anyway, but there was another Mike Yeager story.
Mike, yeah, you see the tow truck guy?
No.
Name rings. Sounds familiar.
Well, he wears a hat all the time at this.
Yeager, I think.
Yeah.
He started selling
Chanel
Volkswagen parts, and he sells They sell a lot of Corvette stuff.
I only know Chuck. I don't
Yeah,
know
Chuck
the
Yeager,
rest of-
good
the
friend of
rest
yours, Chuck.
We hung around back in the day. So.
It's you and Chuck Yeager.
I wish I could remember all the stories that anyway. So.
Yeah, but wait, the Eagle Rare.
Eagle Rare,
Eagle.
This is one we have not reviewed on the podcast yet.
Phil busted that out, which we actually kind of overlooked and forgot about that. That's one of the heavy hitters that are somewhat obtainable.
Is this an expensive bottle?
It's going to piss off some people because some places it's halfway attainable and some places it is like.
Yeah.
If you're a hunter, a bourbon hunter, that's when you can find it. But it's valuable.
It used to be obtainable, and it was like a $35, $40 bottle, and then bourbon became desirable, and it is no longer easy to find anywhere. It's a Buffalo Trace, kind of they're in between regular Buffalo Trace and Blanton's, I would say.
Actual age statement too, 10 years.
It's 10 year, yep.
So can you get me a bottle of Pappy Van Winkle? Is that impossible?
It's not. Nothing's impossible.
Oh, I know, but
When you know,
when you
Dave Garfield,
Yeah.
Garfield's.
Garfield's
Warehouse
Beverage Emporium.
Beverage Emporium.
Is he a sponsor? Or you just like
We just
Dave?
like him.
Yeah. I called him once, but he never said it. I wanted to see what he could get me, but he never called me back.
We'll have to make that introduction.
Yeah. It's
Even though I was
it's
on a road
it's a
tour
very
with him.
limited supply, so I'd be willing to come off of one of my yearly allocations
Yearly.
for a guy like you. I mean, so they release it once a year.
Oh, they do?
Yeah, right around November. That's when all your kind of big bourbon releases are. So you got to either be hunting for it or know somebody, but it's available. I mean, readily available on the secondary market if you want to pay that kind of money for it, but you can get it any time. It's just you got to be prepared to pay for it if you want. But I'll make sure I set a bottle of stuff.
Well, find one for me and just let me know what I owe you. I'm not much of a drinker, you know that.
You've got to be a bit of a drinker to have one of those bottles.
Yeah, well,
It's something that needs.
Yeah, it's not for looking.
Right.
It's for drinking.
No, you just sip a little bit. You stretch it out over time.
Oh, you could do that as long as you're going to drink it.
Yeah, what?
The Eagle Rare though, that's one I absolutely love.
You're always seeking that out.
I've got luckily got a little in, so I'm seeking it out because I'm drinking a lot more of it, along with the Weller. But I give it a 7.9.
Ooh, big rating.
That's big.
Big.
It's not
out of
huge.
the gate.
It's
I
under
feel like
8.
that's-
It's under 8.
Yeah, by the
Right there, right point.
Just under.
7.9. I give it a 7.9.
I feel like I need a reference again.
You can't.
Who
Sorry.
developed the
All way over
scale?
there.
It's just how drunk you are and what you pull out of thin
I've
air.
listened to
I
a
think
lot of these. And
it's pretty much industry standard. There's other bourbon reviews and everything.
It's a
and
1 to
they-
10?
They go off of the oil and whiskey rating system.
Have you established
It's-
that, you know?
it's
They were kind of a
Nation-
Big,
it's
kind of a
nation-
big
it's
deal. Derek. I
nationwide.
don't know if you know that. or
well,
not.
I don't know that.
So there's
I'm telling you. I'm telling
just-
you, we're a big deal.
I just wonder how a couple 30, 40 something and a soon to be 50 something all got to be such.
You're
a,
thinking
We're connoisseurs.
must drink a lot.
You do drink a lot.
I mean, there's reviews like buy it or
Don't buy it.
don't buy it
Yeah.
or shit's terrible.
Yeah.
I think
Seek it out.
yeah,
Right.
that's our
I gave it a 7.9.
Shit's,
would.
shit's
There's a
terrible.
bold 7.9.
What
I'm
are you
gonna go
going with?
7.0.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's low. You didn't
I
like
think
it?
it's about. I do like it quite a bit. I feel like that's in the wheelhouse.
It's not, but that's fine.
I even
7.0.
like it. I don't know if I drank very much of it
I
at
think
all.
you need
compared
like
to
a
you.
little frame of reference.
That's
based
what I
on-
was asking,
Because
but
I
I
think
got
we were
shut down
8.
right there.
Yeah, check it out because I think 8.2s are like Blanton's. 8.4, 8.2, 8.2, 8.4. Which I don't think it's as good as Blanton's.
No, it's
so
not. That's kind of why I went with
It's going to be
7.9.
south of there.
Is this the Roadster Shop scale over
It
here?
is.
It is.
It's a good
Who
like.
developed that?
We've kept up with it every time we've done it.
Yeah.
So every review we've done.
Oh, you bring it up to date.
So it's a good review system for people without that ridiculously sophisticated palate where you have to rate them based like and give these wild
4,000
reviews.
flavors
Yeah.
of.
It's pretty much it's either good or it's not good type review.
If I go online and look up bourbon reviews, am I going to see Roadster Shop review on that?
Probably not.
It's a
I don't
paid,
think
at the bottom of
it's
the
a
barrel.
paid for subscription. You probably have to.
All right, in that ballpark. 7.0 Milliman Green single barrel 7.0 across the board. Jefferson's Pritchard Cask 7.5 7.6 7.5. Oak and Eden French Oak 7.5 7.9 7.5. Elijah Craig 18 year 8.3 7.9 8.3. Orphan Barrel Fable and Folly 7 1/4, 7.2, 7.0.
It's a 7.4. That's a review right there. That's it. You could chisel that in stone. That's
Or you can use a silver.
Here,
shark.
Josh, you won the bottle. You had the highest rating.
yeah. I think this. I mean,
I may have been a little low.
simply put, it's a bottle you should seek out. You should grab it. It's one for the hunters. It's a feather in your cap. It's a trophy in the collection.
It's one that you can go to all the time, and it's holds up. So, well, appreciate it, Barry.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks
been a
for
blast.
coming
It's
out.
a privilege to be here.
Privilege to have you. We appreciate you making the trip.
I think I'm one of the first customers you've ever had, which is.
I think you were
No, I'm not-
customer number one.
No,
on
I'm
the
not.
barbell.
I'm talking about on the podcast.
Yeah.
Oh, you, Matt.
Yeah.
There's a few other people, I guess, but why don't you have Dave Garfield? He's a customer.
We will.
He can rip through your rating schedule for you.
Dave, believe it or not, Dave's not a huge drinker.
Is he? Well, neither am I.
You don't get high on your own supply, I think.
Yeah. I always tell everybody, the rest of the people in my family drink my share of liquor, so I've never drank much.
Really?
This is kind of a new thing where I'll sip on something. I decided about 3-4 years ago that for years I drank brandy old fashions. That's all.
That's
And
the
it's-
Wisconsin.
Well, it's a Wisconsin thing
Yeah.
because only 80% of the brandy is consumed in Wisconsin that's made. I think I've heard that number. And I finally started looking at myself and saying, I'm getting up in age. I think I can afford something more than just the bottom of the barrel stuff.
Yeah.
Let's start drinking some good stuff. So I don't know.
Did you do the brandy old fashioned sweet? Isn't that
A little bit,
thing?
yeah, but
Sweet or
No, I
sour?
just
Yeah.
brandy old fashioned. Brandy old fashioned sweet. And then I hate drinking so much that I dump a package of Sweet and Low or Equal in it to sweeten it up because it wasn't sweet enough. Otherwise I couldn't drink it. Now I'm to the point where actually you buy some good whiskey, bourbon, whatever, and make it all. There's some cocktails that we have a restaurant we eat it down in Arizona all the time, and they have what's called a pig old fashioned. So it's 10-year Whistle Pig, and it's pretty damn good stuff. I mean, they mix it the right way, and you can tell it's better than brandy.
Yeah, it's definitely is.
You pay extra for it, but we
Hit up north of Bourbon if you're ever in Louisville.
what?
For a
Hit
good
up north of
cocktail
Bourbon if
experience.
you're ever in Louisville.
What's that?
It's a restaurant and bar with some out of this world cocktails.
Really? Oh,
Really good.
we were at a restaurant. In fact, we're going there in a couple of weeks called the Monarch Cafe. It's probably one of the top-rated restaurants in Phoenix. Not inexpensive.
I'm sure.
Yeah, and they have a Dave Meyer. I don't know if you've met the.
He's a customer of ours.
David Meyer.
No, there's Dave Meyer. This is the family that owns the truck stop, Iowa 80 truck stops. They're good friends of ours. We went to dinner with them, and he ordered an old fashioned. Was $48 at this restaurant. $48.
Yeah, it's a spendy little cocktail.
I did not taste it. It must have been really good.
Barry, thanks again.
Yeah.
Glad we could have you. Thanks for listening.
Glad to be here.
Thanks for listening to Oil and Whiskey with the Roadster Shop and Ironclad Original. If you like the show, be sure to leave us a rating and review. Thanks again to Barry. We'll see you again next week.